All right. I thought I would start with just this super chat right here, because I think it's about right. Long live the song, but as a tanky, I better get out of here before Fat Electrician shows up.
I mean, I guess that's a good reputation to have.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the stream tonight, and special thanks to our friend, the Fat Electrician, for coming in. Thanks again. I was just telling everybody how, or I was telling you, and I want to show everybody how cool your new room is now. It's like ultimate.
Yeah, it's
like,
pretty awesome.
Pretty like the man cave. I love the lights. You got a gun. I don't know what the gun's pointed at, but
it's just decoration.
It's not like a picture of Stalin like on the other end of it or something.
No, but it's a hell of an idea. Oh, here, hold on. There, now you can see the gun better.
What you got? Oh, that is awesome. It's not real though. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, it's real.
That one. Oh, okay.
They're all real.
Well, anyways, yeah. Thanks for coming on. So let me tell the chat and everyone to know what I guess kind of spawned this, because I thought this was actually really funny. So I covered a new or newish Hakeem video on Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact and put it out this morning, and I'm doing my morning thing, and I love seeing a text pop up from Fat Electrician. I think I'm gonna have to make a video on the Ribbentrop or on the Ribbentrop Pact now.
Well, I only got about 50 emails asking for one after you did the react, because a lot of my fans watch your channel.
Yes.
So,
but I thought that was funny. And then, I didn't have to ask you any questions about it. I mean, you just were able to just throw down all your, just full, you entered your full rant mode, which is great because everyone loves to hear that for you and hearing that. And I thought this would be great to put on air and see the response. So I appreciate it. Well, anyways, if you guys want to know what kind of I was talking about, so you guys know Hakeem. He's there's this term I'm learning about, tankies.
Yeah.
Right. So tankies, right?
Yeah, I don't know who it is, but I know what a tanky is.
A tanky is okay. So Hakeem is a tanky. He is an Iraqi socialist essentially, and he makes a lot of videos. A lot of them are historical and they're from the perspective of kind of socialist or communists, and he does these videos, and I've been looking at him recently the last few weeks, and they've done really well. So I've kept kind of doing them. I've usually try to stay away from channels that are just very openly like going to talk about something with like an open bias that way. But then like people are telling me like, no, like those are the things that you should cover more, like as a teacher and somebody that I hope tries to bring like, I don't know, analysis of those things. And so I started covering those, and it's been great. I've seen so many people liking it, both kind of spectrums, people that love kind of the communist kind of scope of history, but then also people that are very anti-communist, and it's kind of been good. But so in the video, it was essentially the thesis, I guess you'd say, is Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, which is the pact between Soviet Union and the
and
Germany.
Yeah, go ahead. I've not seen the video, just so you know.
That's fine.
Okay.
Nope, that's fine.
So you're gonna have to catch me up on what the.
But I'm gonna catch you up, and I want to present the arguments they made there, because I already saw like with some of the stuff that you said, it actually addresses it. So I think this could be fun. But anyway, the video in a nutshell is basically what the West has been taught about the pact is not true. That this was like some like full on like alliance in the way that a lot of people look at it, and kind of like the Soviet Union are the bad guys, just like the Nazis, because they did this pact. And his video, he tries to bring up, and he tries to bring up these points to bring that up. So,
such as,
so let's kind of go through them. So let me look at what I kind of sent you. So the one that he kind of starts off with, and even I brought up at the very beginning when I responded to it, was that this pact was, first off, Soviet Union was like the last of the European nations to make any type of agreement with the Soviet Union.
True. However,
Yeah.
They were the first to have a secret protocol in their agreement to attack a sovereign nation and split it up amongst themselves. That's worth mentioning.
So he brings up like that secret protocol is not in there, essentially. Or like,
yeah, that's what secret means. They hid it because they knew it was morally and ethically wrong to do.
He brings up a quote about it that said something about like if the borders are to get threatened or something. It was like very loose.
Oh no, that's directly.
Yeah.
So I've just so
Yeah.
I have taken extensive notes on the
Sure.
Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact before. Like I have all the notes. So he's quoting the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact directly, if that's what's happening. So Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, secret protocol. It's number 2 that regards Poland, and that is, quote, in the event of a territorial and political rearrangement of the areas belonging to the Polish state, the spheres of influence of Germany and the USSR shall be bound approximately by the lines of the rivers Neru, Vistula, and San. Is that what he said?
Pretty much.
Yeah, that's directly from the secret protocol, which does exist because he apparently quoted it. Yeah, what about it? It's pretty straightforward. If Poland disappears, we're going to split it up.
Yep. And,
the argument?
by the way, I've had a few chats. We're saying about super chats. I will go through all of them. I just don't want to interrupt, like, kind of what he's saying and what I'm saying. But I promise I will go through those because they have been coming through. And if you guys have questions, I'll get to them. But just don't want to interrupt it. But okay, so anyway, you were saying so. I guess if we move the goalpost to the next kind of point that I've heard, and by the way, the points I'm giving, I don't want to like totally like straw man Hakeem,
for sure.
But they're just in general things I've heard.
What's the argument though, saying that Article 2 of the secret protocol isn't directly splitting up Poland? That's literally what it says.
Yeah.
I mean, the only foot that you can maybe argue on is like, I guess you could take like a life insurance policy approach by saying like, well, just because we said we were going to split Poland's carcass up if it disappeared doesn't necessarily mean that we were going to be the ones that killed it.
Sure.
And then you kind of have like the life insurance. Like I have life insurance on my wife and, God forbid she passes away, I'm going to get a bunch of money. That's fine for me to do. It's not fine for me to go and kill my wife to get that money, which is exactly what the Germans and the Soviets did by attacking Poland. So you don't get to say like, well, that was just a contingency plan in case, something happened. But if you're the something that happens, you no longer get to claim that like that was a coincidence. You know what I'm saying?
You think there's like designed to have like plausible deniability? So it's like that wasn't our intention, but like it leaves the door open for that. But I can wash my hands clean of the blame. You know what I mean?
I don't think there's any like leaving the door open for plausible deniability with this. And they knew that. That's why they hid it. They made it a secret. You don't hide things because they're good and right and just. You hide them because they're wrong in the first place. And that's exactly why it's a secret protocol.
For sure. By the way, this is less formal chat. I am eating pizza. I invited him. He can snacks, drinks. Like, this is so informal. But anyway, by the way, I don't think you can call yourself the Fat Electrician anymore. You're looking like
I mean, it was just a joke.
You're just going to be the electrician here soon, or the anti-communist electrician.
That's true. I mean, you can just call me an electrician. Communists don't have power typically. I mean, look at Cuba.
Okay, let me throw up the next one. The next kind of point out of here. So there's this argument too that like the Soviet Union gets blamed a lot. Like, how could you make a deal with Hitler? You know what I mean? But then the argument's like, well, everybody in the West already did that. Like everybody had done that before. Appeasement being the famous one, but everyone basically made a pact. But the Soviet Union was the last one. So like using that as an argument. What do you think about that?
They were the last one to make a non-aggression pact.
Right.
They were the first ones to make an agreement to attack a sovereign nation together. That's what makes it a military alliance and not a non-aggression pact. Agreeing to attack a sovereign nation at approximately the same time and split it up. Saying anything other than that's absolutely insane. But saying that they weren't cooperating with the Nazis is also absolutely insane because, hold on, going back to my notes because I've had all of this written down for years.
What would you say is like clear evidence of actual cooperation?
if we go down my timeline of these
Yeah.
events,
I saw that list you had. That was
so
good.
we have the Great Purge in 1936. That's where Stalin killed off a lot of his top military and industrial leaders.
Yeah, something like
And
half,
then,
I think.
right. And then in August 19th, 1939, we have the German-Soviet Credit Agreement. Okay. So this is August 19th, 1939, right at the beginning, World War II is coming up. We've got Soviets deliver 180 Reichsmarks in raw materials to Germany, and in exchange, Germany provides 120 million Reichsmarks of industrial goods. So they're doing a significant amount of business with the Nazis that they're supposedly going to defend themselves against in the coming months or any moment. So why are you giving raw materials to the people that are supposedly going to turn those raw materials into tanks and try to attack you? And while the rest of the Western world also has been United States, I don't know other countries, but in particular, the U.S. has been whittling down trade with Nazi Germany since 1933. By this point, most of the business getting done by the late 1930s by American companies is like companies like Ford, General Motors, and they're having to use subsidiary companies, which absolutely is not okay. And I'm not justifying that, but there comes a point where the West quits doing business with the Nazis and then simply agrees to not interact with them in any way. Don't fight me. I won't fight you. I'm not doing business with you. You stay over here. I'll stay over here. And equating that to what the Soviets are doing of, hey, let's keep doing business together. I'll give you raw materials to build your war machine. You give me a bunch of money. We'll agree to invade Poland together and take it over. And then we'll throw a parade in the middle of it after the fact is complete. It's not even comparable of a comparison, and it's absolutely insane and disingenuous to do so.
I told you in my text that one of the things I forget to bring up when talking about, because I was kind of giving arguments against what he was saying as well, was like the parade thing. So it's like you can't say that they again didn't plan on this or even enjoy. I don't know if enjoy is the right word, but like enjoy maybe actually doing this, but then like celebrating it. I was going to ask you, and you had said it because I was actually wondering what the economic deals were like, even though you had those agreements.
In particular, you have two big ones. You have the Soviet agreement that I just talked about in 1939.
Right.
Then you have some issues going on with Japan on the periphery. That's not really part of this conversation. August 23, 1939, you have the Ribbentrop-Molotov Pact. So they've signed the pact. Okay, this is officially, we've entered the era of the Soviet. I believe the narrative, I haven't seen this guy's video, but generally the narrative with this talking point is the Soviet Union had to sign the Ribbentrop-Molotov Pact because if they didn't, the Nazis were going to attack them, and they weren't prepared to go to war with the Nazis. So it's not their fault. They did it for survival. Am I pretty close?
Yeah. It's like it's a defense. So, the Soviets did the same thing with Romania, I believe, too. It was
question.
Like, we're going in because we're going to save them. Yeah.
Why wasn't the Soviet military ready?
That's another interesting one.
It's because the Great Purge happened 3 years prior in 1936, and Stalin killed off all of his top generals, and his entire military was in disarray. So you were shorthanded and unprepared because of your own communist policies. That's not America's or the West's fault. Okay, that's 100% on you.
That's what I said in my response. Yeah,
they usually say, "Well, we had to invade Poland to save." Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. You wanted economic issues, correct?
Well, so I was specifically wondering about like with the West. You had to talk about the West, how they dropped those economic connections
and eventually stopped them altogether. Right. Correct. So then, so now they did have a commercial agreement, as I discussed prior to the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. So they would have a really strong argument for it being self-defense, unless they made another humongous commercial agreement that they were going to keep doing business and arming up the people that they're supposedly defending themselves against, right? I mean, that's pretty fair of a point. Yeah, well, that happened in February 1940. You have the German-Soviet commercial agreement. This was built to expand the previous agreement. The terms are, you ready for this? This is going to be a big one. I'm going to take my toothpick out. It's going to be, the USSR delivers 1 million tons. Bear in mind, a ton is 2,000 pounds. So 2,000 pounds of grain for cattle, 120 million Reichsmarks worth of legumes, 900,000 tons of oil, the amount of approximately 115 million Reichsmarks worth, 100,000 tons of cotton, 500,000 tons of phosphates, 100,000 tons of chrome, 500,000 tons of iron ore, 300,000 tons of scrap iron, 2,400 kilograms of platinum, 11,000 tons of copper, 3,000 tons of nickel, 950 tons of tin, 500 tons of myodinium, 500 tons of tungsten, 40 tons of cobalt, other miscellaneous things such as lumber and numerous other raw materials. In exchange for that, Germany was going to deliver one incomplete Admiral Hibner class heavy destroyer, the Luzo, plans for the battleship Bismarck, their flagship, information on German naval testing, naval heavy guns, blueprints for multiple different weapons, samples of Germany's latest warplanes, such as the Bf-109, the Bf-110, the Ju-88, oil and electrical equipment, locomotives, turbines, generators, diesel engines, and other sample pieces of German military, such as tanks, artillery, explosives, and chemical warfare equipment. So they're doing hundreds of millions of dollars in business, all under the context of preparing for war, while also claiming that they're the victims here because they're only signing this agreement to defend themselves, and that agreement has a secret protocol to attack another nation at the same time. Not together, just approximately the same time, but not on the same team. But we're not going to fight each other. We're just going to fight them.
Yeah, it is pretty damning, I guess. Yeah, when you look at it, because
all those things you brought up.
What was that?
Did he not mention that in his video?
No. No, not with especially not with the detail that was not in there. But like, and all those things you're saying, raw materials that are definitely going to be used for warfare, right? So you see that, and then there's some moving of the goalpost, I guess, that happens sometimes where it's like, okay, that was happening, but like the idea was, okay, they're gonna both invade Poland, but they're not going to mess with each other. Like there was this like understanding that Germany is going to do their thing, Soviet Union is going to do their thing, and
I mean, that's what the Allies did.
Believe they weren't going to fight each other. What do you think about that? Do you think that's
what the Allies did at D-Day, right? I mean, it was just like, hey, Britain, Canada, you guys take those beaches, we'll take these beaches, we'll all fight the Nazis. We're not going to fight each other.
Sure.
Also, we're not on the same team. Oh shit, wait, we are. It's complete nonsense. This entire talking point, like, it doesn't stand up to what you would call the scrutiny of common sense, because there's no other situation on the planet that you could apply this situation to, and it would make any sense at all. Like, imagine if two burglars broke into your house. They knew each other. They weren't friends, but they knew each other. And one guy told the other guy, I'm going to rob this house at this time. Be pretty cool if you also started robbing, I don't know, the first floor, and I'd rob the second floor, and you showed up like 5 minutes after me, and then we both took off in separate getaway cars, but we're not working together.
Would you go as far though to say that they actually, like, I wouldn't say got along, but agreed with each other? Like, you talk about how fascists hate communists and communists hate fascists. Or do you think it's more just of an agreement for each to do their own, brand of totalitarianism or imperialism that way? Or do you think they actually were aligned? Does that make sense?
I mean, they're obviously both in it for their own ends. I mean, at no point did I think that they were like, oh, we're going to merge and become the same society with the same plans. But I mean, it's like if you watch, I don't know, like a reality TV show like Survivor, like you try to kick out all the weaker people, and then you have the stronger people left that duke it out. I mean, they were strategically getting rid of the weaker people on the board so that they could get more assets and take everybody out. Like, were they working together under the pretenses of being one big happy family and singing Kumbaya by the fireplace? No. Were they working together? Absolutely.
Also you hear this, like, if you look at Mein Kampf and all the ideology, like, it's not surprising that Germany invaded the Soviet Union, Lebensraum, all that kind of stuff. Do you think the Soviet Union had ever planned, or do you think just out of hunch that they were going to invade west into Germany, west of that, the center of Poland?
I don't have the information on my fingertips, but I think it's like documented that Soviet Union had plans drawn up to go to war with Germany. Like, at no point was Stalin planning on like letting Hitler take over Europe. The Germans just got to it first.
Well, let's say Germany just goes to mid Poland, like central Poland, right? Like it's supposed to be outlined. Do you think in any way that, okay, Germany doesn't pass that the Soviet Union maybe goes, okay, we're going to go in and do some kind of, imperials in their own, like take Western Poland, which was not part of the original Russian Empire. That's like the context they use is, you know, Poland, that middle of Poland is where the old empires were, German Empire, Russian Empire, that Russia would have done their own Lebensraum, like living space finding.
I mean, potentially, I would say, yeah, they would try. Would they take it over at some point for some period of time? Probably. It would ultimately just fail because communism always collapses within itself. So, I mean, yeah, absolutely. Given enough time to incubate, they would have tried to take over more territory.
That makes me wonder too if like Lend-Lease would extend if the Soviet Union had pushed into Germany like immediately. Like, or would the Americans have been like, all right, no, we're out of this, no more dealing with that, because obviously they're going to help them with, especially when Germany does invade the Soviet Union, but when they actually start fighting each other. But if the Americans would pull out, if Russia was seen as the aggressor against Germany.
A lot of people wanted to. I mean, you were just letting two competing ideologies that weren't really compatible with the West destroy each other. So, I mean,
Let it
the
burn.
notion of a two-pronged attack D-Day was pretty controversial within the military at the time. Like a lot of the top generals debated on whether or not they should even launch D-Day, and like why are we in a hurry when these two are destroying each other and doing all the work for us? So
Let them just burn each other. Have you read the Eisenhower letter, the like what if we didn't, the letter like what if D-Day didn't work? Have you ever read that before?
I have. It's been a long time though.
It's so interesting. I love sharing that with my students because it's like it showed how like how likely they actually thought it would have failed. Like I always find that interesting that they had it ready. They were not very sure, like you said, that it would even work, that could even beat them. But it's a little bit again off the a topic there. Let me pop in a couple. There's a couple comments and questions here that I had in the super chats. Hello, Twitch Tot. Okay, this one, thank you for that $1, by the way. All right, Nunez, Nicholas says, I guess Fat Electrician had enough of you watching commie propaganda. By the way, I'm from a place that got a communist president via voting. Yeah, he's Chilean, so saw what happens. What do you think about that actually when like a country through a very diplomatic process will vote in a socialist or like a communist? Like obviously the United States intervenes the hell out of those situations all throughout the Cold War, but like, you know, I know you hate communism and I get that. Like, what do you think if it comes through like a democratic process? You think you let
I
that
mean,
go?
you just I mean, you kind of have to. Ultimately, yes, you should. But the difference is, and one thing that America's gotten right so far, kind of at least, is we have a lot of safeguards in place. You have a ridiculous amount of firepower with the citizens, and you have a constitution that has these rights. Like everything's up to be voted for in a democratic or a constitutional republic that has democratic functions, except for what's in that constitution. There's a very large, complex way to amend it. It doesn't happen very often, and that's for a good reason, because those are like the human rights that we uphold and we hold dear. So in theory, you could elect, you know, a communist or a fascist, and they shouldn't be able to get a whole lot done by means of, you know, eroding human rights to the degree that you've seen in other places. And it's because the American citizens are so armed. And that's why every single dictator of any variety, every authoritarian, the first thing they do is they want to take away all the guns, because they know that's what's going to stop them eventually. So
yeah. Well, like Lenin was all about weapons. Like he was like the only way the working class is going to be able to get anything done is like through violence.
yeah.
So I don't know, maybe there's instances, I guess, of that. Maybe you're saying like after
Well,
the fact.
he's the revolutionary though, right?
Right.
What happened after that revolution took place and his ideology was prevalent? Suddenly we don't need guns anymore.
I see what you're saying there. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like the revolutionary period being the one.
Right.
Yeah.
Like we
where
need
you're
guns to
using
get
that.
what I want, but once we get what I want, guess who doesn't need guns anymore?
Then
All of
take
you.
it away. All right. Anyways, want to keep going here. Hello, Mysterion Fe. Love you both. Can we rant about communism? Hey, that's why I brought him
I mean,
on.
that's kind of what we're
I'm letting
doing.
him rant, man. I'm letting him rant. He's responded to the talking points, you know, that I've been coming across in comments and
Your
videos.
chat looks like they want sources. Do you have some way that I can drop these to you right now?
Yeah. You can post stuff in the chat too if you want, but
I mean, you can literally
which
look up the
sources are they looking
Molotov-Ribbentrop
for?
Pact. I haven't really said anything not worth citing. All you have to do is type in the Soviet commercial agreement, and it pulls
Yeah.
up exactly what it was. Like,
Right.
what sources would you guys like?
Yeah, let us know. Okay, a
Just
couple
looking
more
at
real quick as I
documents and
get up.
pointing out obvious shit so far.
Oh my god, I saw the video title and was like, wait, what? And it's happening. Thanks, Kraken. I know there's a couple. Yeah, thank you guys. Union Jack the Ripper, thank you. I'll go get the Machno anarchists from Ukraine. Okay, gonna go get those guys. Thank you, Baldur Aviation, long timer. The moment someone starts defending brutal dictators is the moment I stop listening.
I haven't done that, have I?
I don't know.
I don't think I've done that.
I don't think. I think he.
Okay, good.
I think this is
Talking about somebody else.
in support of you.
Oh, good.
All right, this one. Okay, the Fixer, $5. Thank you. Says the moment when you realize Orwell's 1984 is not a work of fiction, but a documentary of the Soviet Union during Stalin's Great Terror and Purge. Now, I've seen people use the 1984 though to also talk about like fascists. So really more about what dictatorship than anything.
Authoritarianism.
Because there's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways you could be the big daddy. You can be the the big brother. I mean,
absolute power corrupts. Absolutely.
Yeah. You kind of believe in the horseshoe kind of theory, you know, how like you have far right wing, far left wing, and they all kind of come back almost together in a certain way. And that point together is authoritarianism. Hakeem in that video actually kind of talks about that because he was trying to say too in that video that like he doesn't support everything about the Soviet Union. And a lot of people will do that, you know what I mean? But like that there were, of course, a lot of things that were wrong, but that, totalitarian. He admitted that like totalitarianism is not unique to fascism. Like it can be in all those different
ways. So he
ways.
does or doesn't subscribe to horseshoe theory?
He does.
He does?
He does. Yeah. Yeah, he does. Never thought I'd see the chubby Electron man wear a t-shirt with sleeves.
Fine, I'll take it off.
Oh, they want they want to see the tats. I don't know. Are you getting cold? It's been warm here. Okay. Okay. Just because you did that, you guys who was this? Patrick, go drop a super thanks over on his channel. Okay, because he doesn't take off his clothes for free. There's no way. Anyways, you and VTH need to go on unsubscribe podcast. Oh, logging through history.
Anything can happen.
Anything can happen. All right. Let me go back. There's some more super chats, but I want to go back to some of the points and kind of see your thoughts about this. So,
sure.
All right. Now you actually kind of had talked about this, but kind of this idea that the Soviet Union didn't necessarily plan on doing that invasion of Poland, but like, okay, so
we just wrote down what we were going to do if we did. Yeah.
But there's a hypothetical, right? They're putting it on paper for the hypothetical, but it was like, okay, Germany goes in and it's what, 2 weeks, about 2 weeks, but then the Soviet Union comes in.
Yeah, I have it written down here.
It's like the 15th, something around there. I forget the exact day. It's within the couple weeks.
September 1st, 1939, Germany invades,
Germany.
and then September 17th. So yeah, about 2 weeks.
Okay, so we're close.
Days.
So like they see that happen. The Soviets see that happen, and now all of a sudden they're triggering that part of the pact where it's like, all right, the boundaries are going to be threatened or whatever, so we can come in. So they come in, and it's protection of a couple things. This was a couple of the criticisms that I saw about Poland itself. So Poland borders basically created by the League of Nations just before that, within about 20 years, right after World War I. It brings in a bunch of ethnic minorities now into this country. There was a significant German population, of course, in Poland, going back to, again, imperial days. But there's also like Ukrainians that are going to be a part of that. The Jewish community, of course. Poland was already heavily Jewish, but they were already there since, moving from the Middle Ages. And that those groups, there's an accusation that like the Polish government was very was very subversive to those minority groups, and that in a way it was like saving those people from this combination of like the Germans and I guess some kind of oppression coming out of the Polish government.
It's the same justification for the war in Ukraine right now.
Sure. Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's exactly
like,
what it
hey,
is.
our people are being oppressed. Russians are being oppressed in Ukraine. We're gonna
I
go
mean,
in
I don't
and
know. Let's ask
liberate them.
Poland today if they like the USSR and communism.
Well, like,
See how they feel about it.
one thing I do say in that video is like, well, like, here's a question that's not being asked to the Poles in this whole thing is like, if if they're gonna, would they rather just not be invaded? Like, is that an option? Does it have to be okay? We're gonna be invaded
Well,
by the Germans, or we're gonna be invaded by the Russians. No
well,
one asked them like, wouldn't you rather just not be invaded? And I'm sure
that's
they'd
the
be like, yes,
entire
please.
that's the entire talking point of like the tanky perspective in general is like, well, actually, the Soviet Union went in to save these people, and they did save a lot of these people, because if they didn't take all these Polish people and stick them in gulags, they would have been exterminated by the Nazis. And it's like, okay, so or you could just leave them alone, or you could help them fight back. You didn't have to go stick them in gulags. It's like it's it's two bad guys. One of them is slightly more bad than the other, but you're claiming that the slightly less bad one is actually the good guy because he's not the absolute bad guy. It's
Right,
insane.
right. Well, if you one that was really supportive of any potential like communist movement that was happening or workers' revolution, that was one thing that gets talked about, that there was a burgeoning one in Poland and the government was putting down, and then obviously the Nazis were going to be put down. So that was like an argument again, if you're pro-Soviet, that they were going in to help protect that like growing workers movement. But again,
Did
that
they?
yeah, what
Did
did
they?
they actually protect it?
Yeah. Did they do what they said they were going to do?
Well, they took over
Or
the
did
country after the
or did they
war, but
massacre 22,000 Polish people at
that did
Katyn?
happen. Yeah.
Oh, weird.
I inserted, if anyone watched my video today, inserted something in there because we were talking about like how horrible the conditions were, obviously between occupation by both, but there was, of course, that added element in the West with, and once the rest of Poland gets invaded, which is the Holocaust. What is it, 2 million in Poland right away, at least 3 million or so with Jews there. I wanted to make sure because I feel like I didn't, like I almost ignored it, but how awful that was, and that being seen as like a weird post hoc justification that it was okay to go in because no matter what hostility was happening on the Soviet perspective, at least it wasn't bad as the Holocaust.
That's insane. It's like the justification, like the moral justification there is being like, look, guys, I'm not that bad. Okay. I had to do what I did. Like there was an arsonist that was going to break into this house and light it on fire with a family in it. So I broke in and I kidnapped the children first to do horrible things. But actually, the kids are still alive and they didn't burn in the fire. So I'm actually the good guy here, even though I'm doing something also horrific. It's insane. Or you could, I don't know, stop the arsonist. Do you ever consider that if you want to be the good guy? No, they don't.
The other part's just
Justifying
people getting in
atrocities
the way.
is
It's bad.
interesting.
It's bad because I'll hear people on all sides do that. Not like it's like justify it, not like always justify it, but like soften it, I guess, in a way. And I yeah. Let me pull up because there were a couple other
Yeah, go ahead.
questions and stuff people had there. Okay. So Mr. Or question, Mr. T, do you have a P.O. box? I want to send some Soviet medals, some rare ones. Fat Electrician, if I sent you some as well, would you open them? I got my hands on a few medals for you guys. You have a P.O. box, right? I think I saw it on your
Yeah,
page.
it's on my website.
So if you go to his, I don't
I
have
don't want
one.
Soviet stuff.
Do you want, I mean, you take it, right? You want some Soviet medals?
Nah, I'm good.
Come on, you got to be an historian, right?
Nah.
You gotta collect stuff. I think that's a no on his part, but we'll see. Soviet medals. Would that just like it wouldn't even enter your home, right? Like some like force field would block it or something. Like I literally can't put it in my house because this is a house of anti-communism.
Can I choose to answer a really good question that's not a
Yes.
super chat out of your chat?
Yep.
Somebody said, I have a question for the Fat Electrician. Why, when a death under a communist country, it's counted as a death of communism, but when somebody dies under capitalism, why is it not a death due to capitalism?
I've heard that a lot.
So it's very simple. It's intent. It's the difference between murder and manslaughter and coincidence, right? So under communism, the deaths that you're assigning to communism under starvation are because the government took direct action that directly led to the killing of people. When you're blaming things on capitalism, like we have the technology to cure this type of cancer, but this person couldn't afford it, and unfortunately they died. That death should count against capitalism. To a degree, yes, but you have to realize on one hand, you're mad at America for not saving you compared to being mad at the Soviet Union for directly killing you. There's a difference between somebody not being good enough to save everybody and somebody deliberately killing everybody. Right?
Sure.
That's
And you got to
the
be able to
difference.
call that out on regardless of the I don't know, social or economic policies or government styles and stuff like that. But it is a point. Again, I've heard. I was covering Second Thought, and he was kind of talking about that, or maybe it was Akeem as well. But yeah, like how quick again the West is to do that, but like put a blind eye to things in capitalist state, or like people talk about failed socialist states, but they won't talk about failed capitalist states. And I feel like that is a fair thing to be able to do.
Yeah, we can talk about failures of capitalism. There's plenty.
Yeah, for sure. And that they're never, really brought in, like in that. Now, something I've been kind of talking about in videos lately, and I think it's important, is comparing like these states, like a socialist state, a communist state, and often they'll compare them with another like a parallel comparison of when you're looking like what's better between this communist state over here and then you have like this capital or democratic state, however you want to divide these up. But a more important, I think, thing to compare is not necessarily state to state, but the conditions before states that go under like revolutions. Like the Soviet Union, was the Soviet Union, and were people better off in the Soviet Union than they were during the Russian Empire? You know what I mean? Looking at that, or like Cuba. Okay, Cuba goes over a communist revolution.
Absolutely better off prior. Yeah.
You'd say better off during the
Yeah.
yeah.
Objectively.
What would you say, like, so if you're talking about like the peasant class, like the majority of people, if we want to stick to like the Soviet Union, what would you say are why like the royal period, the monarchist, the czarist regime
I was
better?
directly talking about Cuba was for sure
Oh,
better
okay,
off.
Cuba.
I don't
Okay,
know much about Russian history prior
we
to
talk about Cuba.
the revolution, so
So
I
like
can't
Cuba,
answer for that one in particular.
formerly being like a colony propped up by dictator with Batista, and not having a lot of access to their own resources. That's usually what happens, and especially in a lot of Latin America, is these foreign groups have come in and taken land, taken resources, and they want those like nationalized and to get in the hands of the people there. So anyway, with Cuba, what would you say about that as far as the before and after? Why were they better off maybe under the Batista or the colonial era
I
than they
mean,
were after the revolution?
I have a friend that just got back from Cuba. Like Cuba is falling apart. All the buildings are rubble. There's holes in the roofs. Nothing's been upkept since the 1960s because nobody owns anything. The government came out and said, "Hey, all the rich people, we got rid of them or they left. You can go ahead and take their houses. You don't own it. The government does. You don't own it, but you can stay there for free." What do you do when you're staying somewhere for free? Do renters go around and fix up the house? No. Everything falls into disrepair, which it has. That's why they don't have power right now. Their entire electrical grid is down because nobody takes ownership and responsibility because nobody owns anything. And the government can't keep up with it. So what do you do?
Mm-hmm. Now, comparing the like conditions, so you're talking about like the 60s, like the conditions from before. So we're talking like before 59, before the revolution, when people were, saying that some of the reasons they say that people were better off after the revolution under the communist regime was you had more access to things like they had more access to like healthcare because that was non-existent, or like literacy rates going up, more access to, again, I guess a different way of life than like you look at, okay, like in the 60s and after, and some of the conditions that there are now. A lot of people say that there are some things that are beneficial. They say like a lot of people really love their healthcare system, or like their amount of the literacy or whatever. But
Do the
what was
doctors
before
like the healthcare
revolution?
system?
Sorry, what?
Do their doctors like their healthcare system?
That's another question. Yeah.
Cuban doctor makes $30 a month. Cuban doctors have to take side gigs as taxi drivers while they're going to work the next day, trying to conduct surgeries in the dark because their country doesn't have power. There's multiple accounts of Cuban doctors going to like international conventions and leaving letters asking for help because the Cuban government won't let their family go if they abandon it. Like at the end of the day, you can be like, these people really know how to read. And the first thing they did was build a raft and swim across shark infested waters to get out of there. Like the proof is in the pudding. It's in the pudding with every communist nation. Everybody tries to leave. It sucks. It doesn't work.
So is it better than before? Like before, so you're talking about like the 40s and 50s. That was kind of the thing I'd been talking about recently. I don't think we do enough of is compare like before, what the times were like before, like it came with communism.
Maybe for a period of time it could have been, but ultimately you're just living in the shell of whatever capitalist society that you overthrew, and nothing gets done, and it's decaying. The entire country's decaying. So if you want to say it was better for the first 10 years after the revolution, yeah, that's definitely possible. But like people in Cuba are still driving around cars from the 60s, the 50s, because they don't have any industry. They don't have anything. There's no food on the shelves. You're waiting for the government to feed you. Nobody owns anything. Like, so was it better after the revolution? Potentially. It depends on how far after you want to look.
Yeah. And you're saying maybe you're saying like with them going to like a communist system, maybe that caps them at what that like growth could be. Maybe it is better, but it's only better by this much and can't get any better after that.
Well, and then it decays because nobody's fixing it either. It's given a teenager a credit card. They're going to max it out really quick and they're going to have a hell of a lot of fun. They're never going to pay that money back and the debt's going to keep going up.
Yeah.
It's going to screw you in the long run.
What do you think the role of like embargoes on Cuba, you think have like, let's say like United States, other countries did that. And you could talk about that with like Venezuela or something like that. Do you think that would change the material conditions very much? Like, because that's a common thing you've probably heard a lot, right?
For sure. Well, I mean, first of all, America is the #1 importer of food to Cuba. So it's not like we don't do any business with them. Like we do humanitarian stuff, but there's a lot of things that we're not going to do that are industrial. If we did do it, would it help them out? Absolutely. But we don't, because they seized $8 billion worth of American assets. And there's still over 2,500 open court cases where the Cuban government owes American citizens and American corporations billions of dollars that they seized back then, and they refused to pay it back. So that's why America refuses to do business with them.
Like seized for like from the revolution onward, those industries and stuff like
exactly.
That. Mm-hmm.
And they're like, okay, well, if you guys are redoing the government, you need to pay us back for all our stuff. And they said, no. So, okay, we're not doing business with you. If you steal from Target, you get banned from Target. What do you want me to say?
Yeah. The similar I've heard with that with like Iran. Are you much on like Iranian revolution? You kind of
I'm not
learn about that as much. How their revolution, like part of that. Well, actually going back to the 50s was, BP oil essentially was running things with Iran, and the whole oil industry was pretty much foreign owned. And they elected this guy, Mohammad Mossadegh, in the 50s, who his platform was to nationalize the oil industry, right? Which would do what you were saying, like you're saying happened to Cuba, which is take those resources, right, and then use them kind of for the people. What ends up happening is a coup, to take him out. They put in the Shah, who was a pro-Western guy, brings back the Western influence. And you saw at least with like, the United States try to do that with Castro multiple times, try to get him out because they could, like you say, see that they're not going to be able to get investments back. And of course, the fear of them become aligned with the Soviet Union, which definitely grows after the failed coups with that. So yeah, thinking about that for that perspective. So like embargoes, you're kind of saying are probably justified because those assets are still controlled. Like, let's say, what if Cuba like paid reparations or whatever for those things? Do you think then like there wouldn't be a lot of justification for like continued embargoes on socialist states?
Sorry,
that makes sense.
Under what context?
So like, let's say Cuba announces, okay, all that stuff we owed the United States that was seized back in the day. Do you think if that happens, that would be a good reason to maybe like, and this could happen with other states like that. Let's say like a Venezuela, other countries that we've had embargoes on, but it'd be good justification to end those embargoes if they did pay off, the money owed to the United States.
Yeah. I mean, if you paid back everything and you weren't committing human rights violations left and right, why not? I'm always for reintroducing people to the global community. I mean,
Right.
look at America's efforts to do that to Japan and Germany after World War II. Like,
When it pumping like, a ton of money. The idea was that is like if there was an economic like problem in those countries, the idea was that communism would pretty much rise in those countries. So it was like investing in Japan, investing in Germany was a way to prevent the spread of communism. And you saw it happen there.
well,
Yeah,
also, we
yeah,
learned from the terms of the Treaty of Versailles that putting a
yeah,
country in crippling debt doesn't exactly have, great implications in the long run, because that's
for
what started
sure.
World War II.
Yeah. Yeah, that was I think that was a good thing that was not replicated was
Right.
all right, Germany, you got to pay it back again. Germany just
Yeah.
finished paying off their World War One debts like a decade ago. Um, it's kind of crazy with that. But let me catch up on a couple things. We do have a lively chat. You cool with that? Some of them are like, hey,
Sure.
talk
Yeah, whatever
about
you need.
this, talk about that. This definitely wasn't meant to be like a debate or something. We're just
No, it's fun.
chilling. But I know you like to engage with people online, right? As far as
Yeah.
you like the people that disagree with some of your your stances. I don't engage all that much. I don't know if my mental health can handle it the way that yours does.
Yeah, it's definitely
I
not.
used to respond to everything, but like I kind of stopped and kind of like, you know what? I'm gonna listen to all these different sources and we'll come to some conclusions and stuff. But like I told you in my text, I take a different approach intentionally of how I do my content. I take like the public teacher approach, which is like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do summary like value summaries for people and like the conclusions, like not do that. I feel like I like doing that. So like a lot of the comments I get is, oh, you didn't push back too hard on this or like this. We got to understand like I still consider myself like a public figure where it's like my job is to hopefully be consistent and be like, hey, they made good arguments, but here's the bad arguments. Okay, what do you think? You know what I mean? And
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, anyway.
I think that's fine as long as you're
Yeah.
consistent with it.
Yeah. That's my goal. That's my
Yeah.
goal because shoot, if I ever like stopped teaching or something, I had no restrictions. I'm not saying I would just like go on all these tangents and of all my own like personal biases. I don't know. But it would be interesting to see that. Like I saw like what when Mr. Beat when he eventually stopped teaching, just kind of during right before COVID, you saw him. He got a little bit more like political with his videos and like bringing in some of that now that he wasn't confined to being like a public teacher because you can get in trouble as a
Yeah.
teacher for spouting stuff even though they say like okay it's outside of the classroom it's fine but like I still don't believe that because your name's going to go around in the communities
Yeah. I mean, if
and
enough parents call on you,
yes
it's going to be an issue at some point. Yeah, I
yeah
get
or
that.
it's going to be an issue and even though the school can be like hey that's on their own time then all of a sudden like yeah I'm the teacher everyone's going to hate in the community I don't want to do that well you do like
Right.
let your kids figure that out these answers to things so anyway we had real history moments live holloway all the way. I don't know what that's in reference to, but thank you, Dan the man. Let me see what else. And there were questions in the chat, and I'll get to those. I just want to make sure I get to the super
Yeah.
chats first because these people have been great. No message here, but 31GG Not Russian Productions. Thank you for the $20. All right, here's one. Communism having elections sounds pretty funny. Like, what would their talking points be? We're gonna have food. We're gonna get tremendous amount of foods. The other will have us on bread lines.
I mean, I think this might be an old super chat when you were talking about democratically electing a communist.
Oh,
So
yes.
generally, after you elect a communist or a fascist, there aren't many elections that are legitimate after that. So
After that,
I
you
think that
become
might be
one
a
party
little
state
confusion
in
there.
that
Yeah.
way. You mean like you know, you can vote, but there's one party to vote
There's
for.
one name on the ballot. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, that can happen in those. The
Oh, yeah.
democracy, I guess, was supposed to be. I mean, the democracy is supposed to be like in the workplace, like giving the workers democratization of the workplace. I don't know if you've ever heard of kind of like a socialized economy that's supposed to be the goal, but like when does that happen? Like the Soviet Union, definitely that got away from them, and you had the Soviets supposed to be these workers' councils, and probably never achieve that to that way. So going against a
Um,
lot of these principles that goes into the thing I know you hate the like not real communism kind of thing.
I hate it less than justifying Soviet atrocities. I'll give you that. At least it's naive optimism as opposed to
Sure.
just like blatant justifications for atrocities.
Sure. Trenton, thanks $5. Says, I think some of the people in here are akin to some of the TFE classmates he's referenced on Unsub before. What is
Just
that?
like
Oh, I saw one. Is
just
that like your college classmates that you
yeah,
weren't
could
you
just
arguing about? What was
college kids that think it wasn't real communism or, just crazy naive talking points they got off of memes.
did yeah? Did you have some good conversations with them, or do you just kind of like let them do their thing? You know what I mean?
I mean, I try to win the conversation, push back on ideas.
That ever happened like during class, like while the teacher's supposed to be lecturing, or like they're responding to the teacher, and then like you jump in,
I mean, sometimes it happens with the teacher,
or
but
before and after
it
class?
happens.
See, I think it's I know a lot of people criticize that, like that kind of environment can exist in universities, but I think that's exactly what should happen in a university. You should have all these different like people be able to speak on it. Like, a big fear that I get even from like parents in education right now is they're so fearful of having their kids hear like an opposing point of view, and they kind of want to like hide their kids from it in a way.
That's horrible.
And I'm like, no, that sucks. Like it's and the irony of it is they're like, no, I don't want my kid to be brainwashed. But I'm like, that's exactly what you're doing if you don't, do that. Because you got your things you're saying at home and things like that, and then political opinions. But yeah, I always hated that. But I love the idea of getting to see those. And you teach your kids, about there are all these different perspectives, and you come to conclusions based off of evidence and looking at all these things, and you become more critically thinking. Otherwise you're going to end up falling for all kinds of stupid things in your
Yeah.
life, the first thing, the last thing that you heard. So now I'm not a parent, so I don't know, like I mean, you have a young one, right? But like,
Yeah.
like how you will handle that kind of thing as they get older, and obviously inevitably older, you're going to hear people talking about, probably starts with before politics, kids are going to hear probably about religion first, and you're going to
Religion,
hear about
history.
and then you're getting history, and then you'll get into politics eventually. And it's like,
Yeah.
how much do you shield or expose your kids, and at what age do you do those sort of things? I don't know, there's no good handbook for that. But anyway, off on a tangent there. Let me get a couple of things. And I think have a couple more points you made from the video. By the way, how are you on time?
I'm good.
Are you
Whatever
good?
you need.
Okay. I don't
Yeah.
want to take too far. Yeah, from your family. Let's see. Robo Jesus wants you to describe what a tanky is for people. And
So
or at least how you
tanky
interpret it.
tanky is like an internet term. So like
Yeah.
communist is too broad when you talk, because like when you say, oh, they're a communist, you could be talking about some college kid that just thinks that we should have communal living, and everybody should just share everything and sing kumbaya, and they'll be the first people to tell you that the USSR and North Korea and all of these other countries that have committed horrible atrocities aren't real communism. So those people fall under communism. A tanky is somebody that kind of goes back and tries to defend or advocate on the side of like Cuba, the USSR, things like that. Yeah.
That's the context. I've always thought kind of what that means, but since I've been covering these, people have been telling me these are like tanky channels. I was kind of trying to figure that out. You know what I mean? But anyway, no, that makes sense. And they said it has something to do with like tanks during, is it Soviet tanks? That's why they call it. It's something to do with like the actual tank part of it.
Yeah, I looked up the reasoning for what it was a while back. I forget.
Not important. Here's a question I think for you. I would like to hear some RBP, $10. Thank you so much. I'd like to hear about Nick's thoughts on the first Polish-Soviet war, invasion of the Baltic states. I don't know. Do you have anything on that?
I don't know a lot about like the history of the context, but I mean, I would go out on a limb and speculate. I know there's a pretty prevalent talking point that, well, why weren't Polish people willing to let the Soviets into Poland and like let their military move in to defend them against the Nazis that were coming to overthrow them? And the obvious reason is because they just got done having a war with you guys, because the Polish-Soviet War was 1919 to 1921. And then 8 years later, you're going to be like, yeah, let me roll my military in to help you out. And obviously you'd have second thoughts.
It goes back to that thing I was saying where it's like the Polish were never just asked, like, do you want to be invaded? Like, they would like to say no, but I mean, I don't know. All right. Thank you, though. Okay, so how do y'all view, how do y'all view on the infighting against Soviet bloc during the Cold War? So Soviet Union versus Yugoslavia, Sino-Chinese War. Here's kind of what I think about that. The Soviet Union tried to be the CEO, ironically, of what communism was supposed to be. And countries say like Yugoslavia. Okay, it was a meme video I showed you. It was, you guys, it's been a kind of a funny thing, the AI video about Tito, right? And how like Tito was like, hey, like Soviet Union, you're not the boss. You're not the president of communism. We want to be able to do like our own things. We don't like a lot of what you do. Yeah, there was a lot of infighting. Tito had multiple assassination attempts, likely from like Stalin and other leaders. So I don't like necessarily how he was doing that. You saw that with China, how at first China was like, yeah, we need all the help we can get after the Civil War. Mao's like, great. But as time went on and, you know, China's getting resources, they're getting planners. Remember, China has to industrialize and Russia kind of has some tips for them and stuff like that. But eventually also got to the point where China's like, okay, we're going to do our own thing now. We interpret this thing to be different than what you guys interpret, you know, what that was going to be. China's an agrarian society. Now their industrialization, they probably should have listened more to the Soviets because their industrialization was a joke, but like, you know, backyard furnaces and all that stuff. But yeah, the infighting I think should have been expected. And because a lot of people are going to interpret things different, and the fact too that each one of these countries like Yugoslavia, Russia, and China all had different experiences before these communist takeovers or revolutions or whatever it is happened. I still think that's something not enough people are looking at, which is what were the conditions before. Like for China has been under dynastic rule. The 1800s were atrocious for China. They had been exploited for 100 years by foreign groups and the spheres of influence. So obviously it's going to look a little bit different how it's like foreign influence. The Soviet Union was not responding to foreign influence when they came in. It was a response to the czarist regime and ending feudalism. And I guess China was largely feudal with that. But yeah, I think it was just very expected to see that. And the idea of trying to expect that all these people are going to be unified and how they interpret what Marxism is supposed to be in their country, and if they're going to all the different branches that come from the socialist tree. Like I think it's impossible to expect that they wouldn't have not have just fought each other. So I don't know, what do you think about that?
I mean, it's the same exact thing. You're trying to apply one very specific way of life to multiple different ethnic groups that come from incredibly different backgrounds. Obviously, you're not going to fit too many square pegs to a round hole when it comes to that.
Sure.
You know, I mean, you even look at like the United States, like the laws in state to state are fairly different all across the US. So they definitely should have had a more, you know, like federal government type approach. Like, hey, here's the bare minimum guidelines. You can vote on a lot of the rest of the stuff amongst yourselves. Trying to force everybody down to one specific thing is never going to work in under any type of way to rule. I don't even pin that directly on communism. That wouldn't work in capitalism or anything else.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. This was I really appreciate this. This was $100 from 31GG. He's supporting you on this one. He's throwing $100, but he says they hate the Fat Electrician for speaking truth. So you got a big fan here. Thank you so much for that. Appreciate that. That's a very generous dono to the channel, but I want to see if we had some other questions. Actually, before that, let me look to see if there was some other points I wanted to run by you about what kind of I've been hearing. Okay, we did the whole USSR was protecting. You kind of hit on already, but one of the things I heard is like a reason why the Soviet Union had not planned to necessarily invade was because the force they came in with was, like you were saying, under-equipped and stuff because of like the purge and all that stuff, but it was like intentional. Like they weren't ready for it. Like it could have been bigger and it could have been more well equipped and well armed, but like that being evidence that they were just going in hastily because they're like, we're going to stop the Germans here.
Why would you? I wouldn't. I think that's horrible planning.
You had to go in under-equipped and undermanned
Well,
or
no, I
whatever.
think it's horrible planning to go in over-equipped in that situation.
Oh,
I mean, if
why?
you look at the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, it just says, "Hey, if Poland, disappears after we disappear it, here's how we're splitting it up." So, like, if you already have the agreement and then the Nazis have overcommitted and they've rolled in, like, let them do half the work for you, which is pretty much, isn't that exactly what they did? Because the
Yeah.
Nazis took over a portion of the Soviet territory that they had previously agreed upon. So then they had the parade at Brest to give it back to them. So, like, if the Nazis are going to go and do
Yeah.
all the work for you and give the reward to you, why would you overwork?
Yeah.
I think, that's a brilliant strategy on the Soviets' part. That's exactly what I would do.
Okay.
Show up late, get all the reward, half-ass the effort. Why not? That's what communism's all about.
Let them do it. This is a question I've heard like you were talking earlier about how important it is to have you believe it's very important to have an armed citizenry. So like the question like here, because I've heard this asked before, and thank you MJ for the $10, says, do you think an armed citizenry would be able to resist a modern military co-opted by a dictator? We say this, but I
Yeah.
never hear any thoughts about if it would truly be effective.
Yes.
You think so? Like, what about the
1,000%.
United States?
1,000%.
Do you think like the like citizenry of the United States could defeat like a military dictatorship
I mean,
in the
define
US?
defeat. Here's the problem. Everybody's like, "Oh, you can't take down an F-16 with an AR-15." No, you can't. But you got to find a pilot that's willing to fly it and drop bombs on their own people. You got to find the guy to load the bombs. You got to have the entire industrial complex. You got to drive the bombs 800 miles down a highway, and anybody could pop up at it anywhere and start shooting at you. Like, when people sit here and say, like, "Oh, there's no way that the biggest armed civilian population on the planet would stand a chance against an armed military." Also, I hold the view that Afghanistan beat America in a war, and that was dudes running around with 40-year-old AKs and sandals. Like, what conversation are we having here? Like,
Yeah.
it's mostly just people that don't understand guns or warfare saying, "Well, who has a bigger gun? I bet that guy wins." Like, at the end of the day, like, can you take out a tank? Probably not. But I mean, let's go ahead and say that these tanks are magic. They're not, but let's go ahead and say they're magical tanks. They never run out of fuel. They never break. They don't need any logistical support whatsoever, and they're crewed by robots. America's got approximately 8,000 to 8,400 M1 Abrams tanks on the books. Let's say they're magic and they're all functioning right now. They're not. I bet half of them are. The other half are deadline, but let's say they're all functioning. They never run out of gas. They never break down. They don't need any repairs. If you spread them out evenly across the United States, you have one tank for approximately every 700 square miles. What are you going to do with that?
Yeah.
Like, there's more guns than people. If it wasn't an issue, why do dictators care so much as soon as they take power?
About like dearming.
Yeah.
Dearming societies. I don't know, because I've thought about this too, and I don't know, I've had a hard time thinking that if you actually had like 100% of the military's assets to you, that could happen. Like the citizenry would have to somehow organize, right? Have to organize, and I
No,
don't
they
know where
wouldn't. They
that
just have to
leadership would
stop.
come. Where leadership would like come from. I mean, rather than just like someone shooting out from their windows when the army goes up. You talk about like the requirement of actually being able to like form organized militias. I guess you'd have to have that sort of thing. And looking through history, you want to look at some context. I mean, there's been peasant revolts in history. Most of them fail. Most of them have failed, even ones that like Maury, I'm thinking like the Taiping Rebellion in China. Some like 30 million people died. You know, it was fairly well organized in a way in the mid 1800s for China against the Qing. They end up losing. The government ends up wins. It severely weakens them and doesn't do well. French Revolution. I guess we can also talk about that. That was a group that also had a hard time getting armed. When you look at how the king was like taken away ammunition, so you get like the storming of the Bastille. So I don't know how like confident I am that like the citizenry could do that if you had somehow like, I guess, a dictator that like completely had control of all the resources. None of the military ends up defecting or like splitting off, because you do see that sometimes with citizen rebellions is a branch of the government will break off and like join them. So I don't know, maybe the scenarios would be different, but I don't know. I don't know if I need more convincing or not.
But I mean, war is won by logistics. If the civilians stop producing logistics,
Yeah.
the army is immediately running out of gas. So, I mean, it's complex in that, like, could the US military hold major US cities or maybe some major, they could hold strategic locations. Could the 1 million members of the US military occupy all of the United States? Absolutely not. It's insane to even know. It's just too damn big.
That's a good point. So
Even if
maybe
you,
it becomes more like fractioned. It becomes,
you could split it up, and
Yeah.
if you wanted to hold New York City, or if you wanted to hold a good chunk of the East Coast or the West Coast or Texas, yeah, that's possible. But as far as like the entire US, no, it's too damn big. There's too many people. If they're not willing to cooperate with you, it's not doable.
interesting. I haven't put a lot of thought to that, but that's kind of interesting to think about. And I've seen people kind of bring that up and or in the chat, and it's kind of yeah, kind of interesting to think about. So, all right, what else? That was a good question, by the way. I really like that. That was good because people talk about that. It's like, okay, we have the Second Amendment, but what is the worst case scenario that would have to be used, and like what would actually be the outcome of it? So, I think that's pretty good.
I don't think it ever will.
Yeah, I don't know. More likely to see a, I don't know, civil war, I guess. I mean, than that, but even that, I don't know. Anyway, Sam and Frank, still technically World War II related. Nick, look up William Fairbairn.
I'm adding it to the list. Hold on.
Okay. He founded the world's first SWAT team in post-World War I Shanghai, then taught the British commandos CQC in World War II. That totally sounds like one of your videos. William Fairbairn. So he founded the world's first SWAT team in post-World War I Shanghai. Interesting. Cool. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for the new Subtonic. I'm an Eastern Euro historian. I collect and study this stuff because it's important. I don't like the USSR, but I love studying it. That's fair. I don't think you have to like something to study it and be interested. In fact, I'm like most interested in the things that I am you don't necessarily agree with. Like it's why people love criminology and why people love learning about serial killers. I don't love them, but it's like fascinating. I find that fascinating, stuff like that. So, all right, this was your big fan, but he's got another one for us. Thank you again for another $20. It's funny that under communism, a capitalist country decided to embargo you can ruin your country. Funny that. Well, I mean, if the United States embargoes you, that's a big deal. Like you can shut down things. So, like again, what would the state be of Cuba? What would Venezuela be if they could truly openly trade on the market? But what are you gonna say? Sorry.
I think the irony there is he's insinuating, like, you know, for being the superior way of life, how come it relies on capitalism?
Yeah, I don't know if that's fair. Yeah, to say, because every scenario is going to be different. But I get the logic there. Like, okay, if you're Venezuela and you have an economy that is so dependent on oil, but then you also have an embargo on that, like that could be very devastating. If your economy is not going to be self-reliant, you know, not being able to be out in the open market is going to be harder than, let's say, like China. China has always tried to be self-sufficient that way, and then until the 1980s, then they open up their markets because they're like.
But I mean, then you just have the fire by fire argument. Why doesn't a communist nation just put an embargo on the U.S.?
Sure,
because it hurts them. Like, it's weird that it's always the capitalist nation that's winning.
All right. Anyway, Vasily, thank you so much. Lock Kraken, thank you so much. Okay, here's another one. IMF Rifley, $5. Have either of you considered getting together with the NFO historical military meme posters? HLC has done stuff with Laserpig and Animarchy before. I don't know what that is.
I'm not familiar
with their meme posters.
Question, no, I have not considered that out of ignorance. Maybe I'll look into it.
Yeah. All right, trying to see just a few more, and we'll maybe try to wrap up here. But open and honest dialogue is what we need in schools. Don't push one side; instead, critique everything equally. I mean, that's what I'm trying to do as a
Okay.
teacher, and what I hope to do is my, in my channel, and leave the value judgments and the conclusions to the viewer. And I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of people that will presuppose or like pre-conclude content. I see people with they'll do that like with YouTube videos. They'll be like, "Oh, it's this person, therefore I'm not even going to look at it." And like I don't think that's good. I think if you feel like content, some kind of content out there, whether it's video or not, has bad ideas, don't be afraid of bad ideas. Good ideas can defeat bad ideas. So don't just ignore them. If you feel like there's a bad idea, then counter it with a good idea. Don't have to hide from it. So anyway, thank you, M2H. Chuck Atkins, big fans of both of you. I love the wild stories that never made it into the textbook, especially when paired with the extra context from Terry. Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, I love doing that. That's what I like to do in my classes. Bring in just the extra stuff that's fun. The things that people think about. Because, you think back to your schooling, like everybody thinks back to their schooling. It's those weird side things that you remember about your education. Those are the things I feel like that stick with you. So ask Nick if he can talk about Witold Pilecki. I don't know.
I'll
What
write
that
it down.
is. Papa Khan, thank you so much.
All right.
If you can talk, I don't know. I'm sure you get so many
I
different.
get hundreds, but give me
Yeah.
one time. I got to
Yeah,
pee.
no
I'll be
problem.
right back.
I'm just going to keep going. All right. Anyway. Malik, I will come back to this one because this is a good question. What is your take on the Soviet-Afghan war? Yeah, similar to I guess how I view the Iranian Revolution, in the fact that there's this Cold War backdrop to all of this, where Afghanistan, has this competition between leaders, and one is going to be more like pro-Soviet and more allied with the Soviet Union. Then you're going to have like anti-Soviet, and usually what the United States does on all of these, if you see it has been getting involved and will side with pretty much anybody that isn't a communist, even if it is against the will of like the general public. And that also happened with with Afghanistan, right? You get this leader. I forgot his name. What was the Afghan leader that had that more like pro-Soviet sentiment, and the United States is going to support the opposition against that. And of course, what that was the Mujahideen. The Mujahideen they saw themselves as freedom fighters in this Islamic revival that was a response to Western imperialism. So yeah, of course, there's a great irony. This question was about Soviet-Afghan war, and again, there's a lot of irony that ends up coming full circle back to the United States, of course, because
for sure.
yeah. We talk about this in my
You
class.
train him to fight me. I train him to fight you. Yeah.
That essentially like U.S. foreign policy during the Cold War was, we'll support anybody that doesn't like communists, right? Like, so
yeah,
no matter how awful you were, or if you were not popular, you were going to get supported. So all of a sudden you get these guys that have been radicalized due to the imperialism that had been going on all throughout the 50s, 60s, 70s. And then they're coming from all across the Islamic world, coming together, forming Mujahideen, right? United States is going to support them, and they definitely feel, they like that support. So yeah, you get the Soviet-Afghan war, and that's going to be a huge deal. I mean, because of that foreign support, it's why the Soviets lost there. And I don't think enough people talk about how damaging that was to the Soviet Union, losing that war. That was like their Vietnam, but the difference being is like United States could kind of like survive those the failures of like a Vietnam, like a failed foreign intervention, but the Soviet Union couldn't do that. It was almost it was actually shorter than the Vietnam War, but pretty much a decade long. So yeah, there's an irony, because then also the irony, of course, is some of those members of the Mujahideen will go on to form groups like Al Qaeda, right? Osama bin Laden was a part of that, and then you get the whole full circle 9/11. But you see how much the United States actually even still kind of reaped. I don't know if you want to call it reaped what it sowed, by really not doing any kind of like distinguishing of these groups that were again anti-communist, but what they were going to be like eventually, and how unpopular or have it come back to hurt you, I guess. So anyway, there was a question that they wanted to get from you on this one. Oh, is this one? Do you think Germany got too much blame for World War One?
I'm guessing it's talking about the Treaty of Versailles basically being the cause of World War II. So I mean, with the benefit of hindsight, obviously the Treaty of Versailles is a mistake, and if you do have a major war against industrialized nations, you should never go with the World War I plan of we're going to make them pay all the bills and put them in crushing poverty for the next 100 years, because obviously it doesn't work and it starts World War II. So I guess that would be my take on it. I don't know if gets too much blame is complex, but having to pay everything back, while that might be fair or just, it ultimately isn't what's best overall. History's proven
I
that.
think the unfair part was how much blame was put on them when there was so many different causes and things that were going on, like in the start of it. Like, I don't think Austro-Hungarian Empire gets enough blame for how they acted. Russia escalated it greatly. I feel like they kind of got off easy and so much of it went to Germany. I don't think that is fair, because now Germany did definitely help like escalate it, but I do think they probably did. I mean, they don't get blamed because they're the ones who actually were going to start invading, but they did nothing. And I think the biggest criticisms you can probably have of Germany is they did nothing to de-escalate it and actually escalated it. I know the whole blank check thing is debatable, but like as far as the blank check about like how much of an influence that was with Austria doing it. But yeah, I think Austria needs to get a lot more blame for the war, but Germany should definitely get it for making it a world war, is what Germany did. So anyway, what should have been probably a conflict between Austria-Hungary and Serbia ends up involving a whole bunch of people that were already trying to find reasons to go to war. Nobody had de-escalation on the mind. So anyway, all right. Okay. Wrapping up here. I want to grab anything I think that's involved with you, because I don't want to take up any more of your time of some of these, because there were some really good super chats here. But let's see. This might be the longest time I've seen TFE go without using spicy language. The audience, whatever. You can say whatever, but But I think you've also learned that YouTube doesn't like that very much anymore. I know you've toned down, probably because you have to.
Well, the only reason I've toned down is sometimes it becomes apparent that the veteran I'm talking about doesn't like bad language. So out of respect for them, I'll tone it down a little bit if that's the case. But
sure. All right. Anyway, let me see if there's anything. No, there's just more suggestions. I mean, I know you have so many things. F-14 video.
F-14 be good.
Yeah.
Keep them coming.
TV, what's your favorite tank other than the Doom Turtle?
Sherman.
Great, by the way. Sherman. I mean,
yeah,
so
easy.
It's so good. Did you ever watch that T-34 tank movie, like the Soviet Union, the Russian movie? So. Oh, it's so funny. It's called T-34, and it's a tank war movie, but like the tanks are like Tokyo drifting and stuff. It's so funny. It's hilarious. Awesome. It's so funny. All right. Let's see. Do you agree with this? Communism fails because the state can't regulate any further capitalism, or it can't regulate any further. Capitalism can be regulated and unregulated. The state can't regulate. I mean, I don't know about that, but
I don't know that that's the reason, but it does fail.
Mm-hmm. If we're giving TFE suggestions, okay. I know he's got so many. Okay, thank you, RVP. American Camel Corpse. It's for a question. Do either of you know or have any interest in communism in Africa? Yeah, I actually really like to learn about it in the context of the Cold War, because essentially after World War II, Africa is becoming decolonized, and when they're rebuilding their countries, they kind of have a couple pathways they can go. fact of the matter, unfortunately for African countries, once they got their independence, they had nothing to build a country with. There was no infrastructure left by European colonial powers to do that. So I know now today everybody will think like, shouldn't have been a clear, decision to go this like capitalistic route and ally with the United States, but it wasn't very clear in those days. And especially when you look at the context of what African nations felt was that they were being exploited, never able to control their resources. And a lot of them after they get their independence are like, thinking we got to do whatever it is to maximize our own, I guess, country's resources and that people can have access to it. So you did that. You might, do that. Plus you had an ally. You could definitely the Soviet Union and the United States, but the Soviet Union also would come in and be like, hey, here's money. Here's to start up. Here's some advisors. Now we're going to have some terms to these deals because US and Soviet Union weren't giving out anything for free. But yeah, the interest of communism, I honestly feel it was like understandable in the context of what those countries were going through at the time of their independence. And it's not to say though that necessarily went well, but also again, it didn't go well for a lot of countries that maybe didn't adopt communist principles in Africa either. You can still see that struggle. You can see Africa is growing, but are still dealing with, I think, the decolonization process and how they were largely left with nothing after colonization. So I don't know if you had anything about communism in Africa, but Nick.
No, I don't. That's definitely not my area of expertise. Sorry.
No, it's just, yeah, I look at it in the context of the Cold War and how, these countries, the world was a sandbox for the United States and Soviet Union to go into, and they were each plugging their arguments in very positive ways to these countries that were trying to establish themselves. So, some way. And then they're also used as proxy wars unfortunately. Nick, what do you think of the Winter Wars?
I mean, it's fun to read about. It's crazy stuff. It's where you get Imo Koivunen and Simo Hoya, stuff like that.
Oh, who was the guy? It was one of the first, I think it might have been one of the first times I watched and reacted to one of your videos. Yeah, the guy that did what was his name? It might have been the guy, but yeah, you were saying it was, I don't think it was Simo, but the other guy that was he the one like on drugs? I think he was on drugs.
Yeah, Imo Koivunen was
that him? That story was amazing.
Yeah.
That was a great story that you told. That was fantastic. So all right, anyway. Yeah, guys, I'm just trying to find the ones so I can let him go, but the ones that
go ahead, send them all. Let's go. Rapid fire. What do you got? Yeah, go ahead.
You sure?
You're not gonna hurt my feelings. Let's go.
You got family. You got. All right. I don't want to impose because we never really said how much longer we'd be around.
Oh, you're good.
All right, Captain Axeman. Much love for King of Norway. Love you both. Love the United States of America. Hope you're both well. It's a Norwegian friend. All right. Thank you so much, Captain Axeman. All right, then if that's the case, I'll scroll up a little bit and see some of these other ones. All right, from Nico. I like watching U.S. politics. Way different to see us that have left political parties. Have there been socialist or communist parties in the U.S. during World War II or pre-World War? I only know about the Silver Legion. Yes. Yeah, there have been.
There's been communist parties in America forever.
Sure. I mean, they still technically exist.
Yeah, there's still technically an American Communist Party. They're just not super prevalent.
So this actually goes in. I covered actually just about a week ago. Second Thought did a video on American socialism, the history of American socialism, and kind of how I address this idea of like socialism in the United States is socialism went about as far as it could have in a lot of ways because it really kind of sprang up with the Industrial Revolution and the awful parts of living in the industrial world at the time and living, being like an industrial worker. You had this, the working conditions, the low pay, huge disparity of rich and poor. There's no things like safety regulations, all those things. And those were a big platform of the early socialist parties in the United States. And through legislation and through, strikes and through getting certain people elected, a lot of those things were met. So a lot of the platform of the earliest socialist party was adopted eventually in the United States. I think there ended up being a compromise that pretty much kind of blended out the rest of the socialist movement, where it was pretty much what was left was probably far more radical people that the general public and the government was not going to be willing to, I think, compromise on. But it's because of the socialist movement early on, with especially with workers unions, that you got a lot of those things in the United States, like overtime pay, the 40-hour work week, the weekend, insurance, all of those sort of things. And it kind of peaked with like Eugene Debs, I feel like, who was pretty much the most successful, somebody you consider a socialist. You know, he's the guy famously who ran from prison and actually got millions of votes. But that's kind of, I think, largely been kind of the history. Now, a lot of people will try to say that like the modern Democratic Party would be considered like socialist, but I'm pretty sure no socialist would say that, especially compared to what a socialist would be considered in another country. So I don't know. Anything you have on the kind of
No, I mean, just
socialism in
comparing
America?
an American definition of socialist to a European definition of socialist, and the American
Sure.
definition of left to the European definition of left, it gets super hairy super quick.
For sure. People kind of laugh at that, like what the American left is, because you know I have a very international audience, and they're like, I can't believe people you're calling far left are like actually far left. They'd be considered, you know, big conservatives in our country. So that's going back to the thing I was saying about how you have to analyze all this stuff in the context of where it comes from, because it's apples and oranges. All right. How about this one for you both? What are some of the lessons learned or mistakes made from the early 20th century wars that you see the US and Europe forgetting, repeating in modern conflicts? What do you think about that? Like lessons, yeah, like a war.
Generally speaking, America has a really good track record at going towards things that make money during not a time of war. So over investing in good technology and getting rid of and abandoning specialized soldier classifications. So like between World War I, World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, America's military stood up what it means to be a sniper. And then after the war, they completely abandoned it. Then they stood it up again with the next war, completely abandoned it. Stood it up again with the next war, completely abandoned it. And then once they stood up being a sniper during Vietnam with like Carlos Hathcock, it finally stuck around. But there's still the conversation today of like they're trying to get rid of the Marine Corps Scout Sniper. Another example would be the Marine Corps in general. They were trying to get rid of the Marine Corps after World War I and World War II.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah, ultimately, what saved the United States Marine Corps in big part was Alcatraz. After World War II in 1946, Alcatraz got taken over by convicts, and the guards couldn't handle the situation. And there was only one branch of the military that was functioning at the behest of the president that could get sent in like that. So they sent the Marines in and got the situation under control. And they're like, well, maybe having these guys around is pretty cool. So
I think I saw that in a documentary, you know, The Rock with
yeah.
Sean Connery. I love that movie. I love that. Yeah. So let me ask you this too, Nick. What do you think about like, you know, like Eisenhower worried after World War II about the military industrial complex. Yeah. Like our economy is going to be reliant on this like permanent state of the war industry. Do you feel like that is something that we've, I don't know, like decided on yet? That makes sense.
No, I don't think American economy is reliant on having active war. I will say that it's reliant on developing new technologies for the next coming war. I mean, we spend so much money in taxes, but at the same time, not that I enjoy that aspect very much, but I guess the steelman defense of that point of view would be there is a lot of military technology that we all use in our day-to-day life that was developed but with your US tax dollars for military purposes that have bettered the world. I mean, GPS, for example, that's a military asset. Now we all use it. So it's a way to advance technology in the world. I don't think the US economy requires it. I mean, you can just go and look at all the biggest defense contractors and compare them to, you know, there's a lot of other businesses America's got going on. It's not just war, but it's still definitely an issue. I'm not trying to downplay how much money I spend on building rockets I enjoy, but I don't think it's entirely dependent upon that.
Maybe like being reliant or dependent isn't a great way to say it, but like benefits from it. That if there's a benefit in warfare, that we're going to be in this like continuous state of looking for more conflicts. I think that that's a
Yeah.
threat, you know.
It's definitely worth being worried about, I'd say, at a
Yeah,
minimum.
for sure. Like the idea you're saying, if you know, that if we can at the very least hopefully focus on how this technology, okay, it can be used to advance military technology, but can it be of benefit to like regular people? You know, people say that
Right.
about the space program and like what NASA did, how much technology was used to do to fund those missions, Apollo missions, but then also be useful for, you know, civilians. I don't know if there's a way you
Right.
can like require that, like, okay, if you're going to be researching stuff, just make sure it isn't just about killing
Yeah,
people. I
it's
don't
fair.
know. All right, anyways, thanks Chuck there. All right, let me get back to yo TFE, can we get America's Goodest Boy slash fur missile PVC patch? I want to put one on my Maligator service dog vest. Also, maybe video on Lori Allen,
Everything.
Larry Thorne, Soldier of Three Armies. Soldier of Three Armies. Did you do that? I
No,
covered
I
a
haven't.
video of some, but you haven't done it. Okay. Maybe it might have been Simple History or something. I think that I checked out. That's an interesting story, that one, but
Yeah.
nice. Some more dog patches. I want dog patches
See what I can do.
for service animals. That would
Yeah.
actually be pretty cool. Okay. Anyway, not really a tanky. I am a fan of both of you. So okay, I was gonna say like I'm a tanky, but I'm also a fan of both of you. It'd be interesting. I don't think a tanky would like you very much, though. Sorry.
That's fair.
No offense.
Yeah, I don't like that.
All right, we did that one. Would you like to react to my upcoming interviews with AI presidents? You know, actually, would rather. I want to refer this question that's kind of interesting. Of I'm working on, and I've been bad at it. My next video essay, and it was about the use of AI in classrooms, like his history classrooms. And I think this would be a really cool idea. What do you think about this? If you can develop AI, and I want to combine, I would love to combine, if I ever had money to start a company like this, virtual reality with AI. And I get goggles or something for my students, and you're going to go and do an interview with an AI generated like interview with President Washington or something. And I think that would be amazing. And you sit down there and you have to ask Washington questions, and then it generates hopefully accurately cool answers. Yeah, like the presidents would give, and you can go sit there and I don't know, and like talk to people like that. I always thought that would be a really cool future for AI in education.
I don't know. It depends on how realistic you want to make it.
I mean, Washington, you should make it realistic because I
It
think he
might
should
get
look
real
all
awkward
freaky.
for some, it
I
might
want to
get
see
really
Washington
awkward
look
for the
freaky.
not white kids really quick.
Wait, what'd you say?
And it might get awkward for the not white kids pretty quick.
That's true. If we want to get too accurate, like, all right, you're in the 18.
But then you get in trouble for kind of like simplifying history. So it's a
Oh,
complex issue.
I guess I'm just dreaming about that. I want my students to take a stroll with like an AI generated Socrates through ancient Athens or something like that and ask questions. I think that'd be cool. I'm trying to think of uses for AI in the future. I want to do some more work on the future of AI in classrooms, and that was one of the ideas that I had. Anyway, all right. Okay, we're getting through. Oh wait, I already did that. Was the camel one?
Yep.
Thing is, would the Soviet-Afghan war have gone differently if the U.S. never supported the Mujahideen? Probably. You think so?
I mean, different outcome. I don't know. I mean, Afghanistan's where empires go to die. So
That's
I'm not gonna short them and say it's all America's fault they survived.
That's true.
So
That is a great
differently, yes, completely different outcome. I don't know about that one.
Maybe just yeah. You're
So
probably right. I mean, that definitely helps because I mean, it went on that long, almost 10 years with the US's help, with all of that training. But yeah, again, this wouldn't be the only
drag
time
it
that
out for 100
Afghanistan's
years.
yeah. They had to sit while the Russians and the British were fighting. Yeah, Alexander the Great, they end up dying there. It's where empires die. So I'm not going to count out the Afghanis, that's for sure. No. All right. Guys, communism cannot exist because communism means stateless society, meaning anarchy. They are socialist, not communist. Well, communism, stateless, moneyless, classless society. So, meaning anarchy. I mean, that's after what's supposed
Yeah,
to be the transitionary phase.
here's my
Where you will
problem
not
with
have
it.
need for the state eventually. So,
Yeah, I mean that's the point. Everybody is like, well, that's not real communism because the true definition of communism is moneyless, stateless, whatever, whatever, whatever. It's like,
yeah,
yeah, I understand that, but you're saying it's not real because you didn't get the desired outcome.
right.
Like you were still attempting to do it. Like
Yeah.
it's if I tell you that you broke your finger and if you slam your genitals in a car door, it's gonna feel better. And I just keep telling you, oh, you didn't slam the car door hard enough. That's why your finger doesn't feel better. Obviously, it's just it doesn't change the fact that it's different. Like
It's like
it's just a semantic argument
it,
that means nothing.
it is a utopian belief that even communists will often say that's not going to be achieved, but the pursuit of it will improve people's lives. That's what they say. If you're pushing
That's
towards
not what
that, it's going
history
to be
says.
beneficial. But yeah. All right. Anyway, let's see what we got. Was right to impose being Iran. Oh, do you think the U.S. should have intervened in the Iranian Revolution and kept the Shah in power like Nixon wanted? So, like you were saying, you weren't really up on necessarily the
Yeah,
Iranian Revolution, but
incredibly undereducated on
yeah,
Iran.
on that one, it's a fascinating one. It will explain a lot about the hostilities between the United States and Iran, and a lot of people actually don't really know a lot about it. So, do you think the U.S. should have intervened in the Iranian Revolution and kept the Shah in power? Well, they did that twice, and it failed. Eventually, there was yeah, the Shah was put back into power twice. He got overthrown. They bring him back in. He gets overthrown again. So I think, yeah, probably not. I don't think that was going to work. It was not the will of the people. So anyway, all right. Just want to know what song was used on his praying mantis video when the U.S. Navy got involved because that shit was badass. Do you
I
know?
have no
Any
idea.
idea what song it
I
was?
would guess it's a song by Nefex if I had to guess.
Okay, right on.
Neffex.
That's cool. All right. Okay, wrapping up. Let's see. What does Electrician think gives the U.S. the right to impose illegal sanctions that kill civilians for political ends, such as those as Cuba? Oh, okay.
How are the sanctions illegal?
Guess we'd have to look at there. So just the idea,
I'm
yeah,
assuming he's referring to the fact that there's been like international committees that have condemned the sanctions. Just
right,
because the international committee says they don't like this and they think it's wrong doesn't mean it's illegal for the U.S. to do. At the end of the day, you have no right to force somebody to do business with somebody else if they've stolen from them. And that's just the fact of the matter. And I've already said this previously in the stream. The number
right.
one importer of food to Cuba is the United States. So America is still sending you the things that civilians need to survive. We're just not sending you things that you can use to, prop up your military or allow you all that different type of technology. We're still willing to sell you food so that civilians can eat. It's not America's fault that your government seizes all that food and distributes it to the communist hierarchy first and then starves out the rest of the lower communist people. Like that's not on the US. Again, it goes back to you're blaming America for what they're not doing for you as opposed to blaming your government what they're doing to you. So it's completely absurd.
And you were saying though, like let's say there was a maybe a reparations or something for things the Cubans had taken from the U.S. You think uh, that would maybe be a good reason to end those embargoes?
If the
Or
Cuban government came out and said, hey, we're going to quit, I mean, even China has told Cuba, you need to adopt a more market based economy. Like what you're doing is too far into the communist realm. It's never going to function. Like China told them that. So if the Cuban government would get a new government, have some type of democratic process and come out and say like, hey, we'll set up a plan to pay you back. I would bet that Cuba is a premier tourist destination in 5 years, but they won't do that. So
you think that they're like US should just because of a state is like socialist or communist should embargo them, like Do you think that's, I don't know, justifiable?
Like if they haven't necessarily done anything wrong
Sure.
directly to the US, I
Right,
think
right,
that
right,
you
right.
should be fully allowed to fail on your own. If you're a legitimate communist civilization and you're making a good go of it and you're not violating human rights and committing genocide, I see no reason the US government couldn't do perfectly fine business with you. But the
Yeah.
problem is when a communist revolution happens, the attitude of the time is we have the right to seize everything and it's controlled by us now. And if that's almost every country now that's developed has foreign assets all over it. The
Yeah.
US has all kinds of property owned by China. All these other nations, like if the US government woke up one morning and said, we're going to seize all of the assets of all the other countries that have invested in us, those countries would understandably be pretty upset and I wouldn't blame them.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a utopian question that can't really function in real life, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a valid criticism probably if with the United States still will do business with places that do commit what you call like civil rights
Mhm.
violations.
Absolutely.
Some
Human
like
rights
Saudi
violations.
Arabia,
Like,
yeah, Saudis, and like a lot of their suppression of maybe like equal rights for men and women and stuff, but they do it because it's economically beneficial. Or again, China, for maybe their extensive
I mean,
censorship
look
and
at
things
diamonds.
like that. Look at what?
Diamonds are insane. Diamonds are an insane example. Like you
Of
can
the
get
labor required.
lab grown diamonds are
Yeah.
like proven to be just as good, if not better, than a real diamond. But people still value the real diamond more because it's just not the same unless it's dug up by like a child slave somewhere. You know what I mean? So it's like everybody in the world is profiting off of somebody being disenfranchised on the other side of the planet.
Would you
It's
say that's
horrible.
a fault of capitalism then?
I'd say that's a fault of almost every human society. So by extension, yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not great that capitalism does that for sure. Capitalism has its faults. If you have a better way of living, I'm all for it. But digging up one that we've proven 15 times is far worse isn't the solution. So
Right. Will you ever remake some of your older videos that didn't get much time? Also, do y'all explain the hypocrisy that communism has with the top brass being so obsessed with money, i.e. Chernobyl? Well, the first part, I don't know, have you ever thought of redoing old topics or anything?
yeah, I'd love to. There's a lot of videos I want to redo. It's just I'll get to them eventually.
Yeah, I mean, you're never gonna have like a shortage of topics. It's just like,
Right.
do you feel like there's one that would really do better now? Like a good
Oh, for
idea
sure. There's
you
like some
wasted or
topics I've
something.
burned through that I like wasted a
Anyone you
3-minute
could think
video.
of,
Like
or
that could have been SR-71, A-10 Warthog, Eugene Flucky for sure. The USS Texas, all of those probably deserve much longer videos.
were those more from like your like TikTok kind of
TikTok
stuff?
vertical
Okay,
3-minute days. Yeah.
sure. You'd like to do maybe like a 45-minute kind of
Yeah.
thing,
Like the Eugene
do
Flucky
do
one
it
is
right.
easily a 1 hour video. Yeah.
That's cool. Awesome. Capitalism fails with every market cycle downturn, and the taxpayers end up saving it and bailing it out. Hashtag nanny state.
Yeah, I
No,
mean, there's a strong argument
gonna
for it.
happen.
Like we
Yeah,
bailed out the banks in 2008. Like you're definitely not wrong. There's tons of problems with capitalism, but if I got a
sure.
choice of capitalism failing with a market downturn and capitalism just failing 100% of the time like communism does, I'm picking capitalism.
Mhm.
Like I'm not here because I think capitalism's perfect and it's the best. It's just the best we've got so far. Come up with a better idea, and I'll be the first person to get in line for it.
What do you think the idea of like those like mixed economies, or
I
people
mean,
might
we're in a
say,
mixed economy now. Like,
sure,
we're not 100% capitalist
sure,
society. I mean, I've
sure.
been paying money into Social Security since I was 14 years old. Like, we have a mixed economy.
Yeah,
It's just how you want to
kind of
mix
have
it
to.
and what you want to do with it.
How mixed do you want it to go? TV, we got an Aldous video. What about Menards? Why 11%? When will it end? What are they hiding?
Menards is on my Fat
Menards?
Files list. I got it. I'm on it.
Okay, awesome. By the way, Fat Files, super fun. Is that just where you love to just get into topics that aren't necessarily, your
Yeah,
military history? Just hey,
little bit less, more fast and loose with it, a little bit faster pace. I found that when I started doing these long hour-long videos, I slow down. I'm explaining things. They tend to get less funny And Fat Files, I try to keep that like fast-paced punchlines while still more TikTok style vibe that I had back in the day.
So
Just
do you
because I
think
like
it actually
doing it.
benefits your main channel, like doing that, like in that way? Like it kind of,
I don't think it hurts for sure. You know, I just think it's easier for people that like, you know, I'm not a business nerd. I don't care how Costco's makes money, but you know, I will say I have a lot of, it's like a completely different audience on the other channel.
Oh yeah, I'm
There's a
sure.
lot of people that aren't into the military history stuff at all, but they love
For
the
sure.
business breakdowns. So
You had done your Costco video right after I got my first membership, and I was like, oh, perfect. Like learning about that history. That was so interesting. So I've got multiple people want you to make a video on Laurie Torney, so like the Finnish soldiers,
yeah.
so who aided commies, the commies,
Yeah,
the
I
three
mean,
different armies thing.
the
So
problem with a lot of these guys, I haven't looked into Laurie Tornians specifically, but like
yeah,
Leo Major, I get asked for a lot, and it's like there's just almost nothing on the guy. There's
yeah.
just not a ton of information out there to pull from, unfortunately.
Okay.
But maybe one day.
All right, 4 more real quick. All right, Mr. Terry, this one's for you. I'm glad you react to TFE and provide broader context. TFE, thank you for being so cool with people reacting to you. And yeah, I totally want to extend that too. That
Yeah.
I really appreciate you being cool with people doing it and covering it. Now, I mean, you're again so popular now. And by the way, congratulations on the growth the last couple of years. Like,
Thanks.
I mean, you're one of the hottest growing channels, but it's where I know you've done a good job with your content is you've broken through into the mainstream coverage, because there's so many reactors on YouTube, and now I'm seeing people that have absolutely no historical connection at all are doing it. Regular reactor channels, and I haven't watched them necessarily. I don't know what kind of feedback, whatever they give. It's just like, oh, that's cool, kind of thing. I didn't know that, but I don't know about adding that. But you've been able to break through to the kind of the normie reactors, and it's really cool that you're cool with that. So
no, it's been a cool ride. Yeah, I don't mind anybody reacting at all. So it's been cool.
that's awesome. And I've found that with 99% of content creators, sometimes there's a little drama that comes out here and there.
Yeah.
And there's some people I will believe, and I totally understand there's some reactors that just exploit it by just literally just pretty much being a re-upload of original content. And I don't really like that very much, but always hope that at least like myself or Blogging Through History is the other famous one that kind of does what we do. But anyway, appreciate you doing that, of course. So, all right, what do you think about the Battle of 73 Eastong? Got any ideas on that?
Like last great tank battle ever. Yeah, no, I'm gonna do a full video on it. It's super cool.
Yeah.
Bradley's going in, messing up a bunch of Iraqi tanks during Gulf War. Pretty incredible story. Got caught in a dust storm. I think two Bradleys, which are not technically not a tank, they're lightly armored, made out of aluminum, meant to be semi-amphibious, went out there and took out 4 tanks on their own. So speaking battle-wise, pretty big American victory. So
cool.
Definitely something I'll cover at some point.
I say I love tanks. I've always been so surprised how there are people like I have in my community that are just tanks are their thing. That's all they care about. They're like tank obsessed. It's like I don't know why they're not called tankies or how they didn't get called that, but amazing that the tank. There's the tank fans, man. They're great, but tanks are cool. All right. Anyway, all right. So we should have a couple left. Any thoughts on the Battle of Narvik and German invasion of Norway? Well,
Not
anything for you on that?
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So I mean, they got invaded. The Germans wanted to control as much of the Atlantic as possible. One thing we want to make sure, and he's Norwegian, we'll want to make sure that we say is that Norway never officially surrendered. They fought the entire time. Yeah, they exiled their king or whatever, but never technically gave up. So respect to the Norwegians for that. I usually find when my Norwegian friends bring that up, that's kind of what they want me to conclude with is like, you didn't lose technically. You kept fighting. Yeah, they took over and occupied, but never gave up. So congrats to you all. Do y'all have plans of covering the Battle of Samar for the 80th anniversary? TFE, it has the world's largest sub that ran away from 3 DDS and a DE.
Am I going to cover the Battle of Samar? Yes. Am I going to do it specifically for the 80th anniversary? No. I just kind of do them when I'm ready to do them. Battle off Samar is going to be incredibly complex because there's a lot going on all at once with multiple ships everywhere. So you got to figure out how to tell that story because you want to cover,
Yeah,
you want to cover the Samuel B. Roberts and multiple Fletcher class destroyers all at the same time, which is really hard storytelling wise without
sure.
like an animator. But I will get to it for sure.
Awesome. All right, Eric, thank you. Anniversary for the disbanding of the World War II tank destroyer battalions is coming up. Just did a video on them. Is that right? The anniversary is coming up of disbanding of the World War II tank destroyer battalion. Is that true?
I don't know. Probably they disbanded a
Yeah.
ton of stuff right after World War II.
Right.
Generally speaking, I don't think I do any videos on any specific date. Unfortunately, my brain just doesn't let me do it.
How do you think the USSR would be different if Trotsky was in power instead of Stalin? I mean, yeah, I mean, they disagreed on a lot of things. I mean, there's a lot of people that are like, I think you're going to find more people that are retroactively more supportive of Trotsky than Stalin, especially when you look at some of the ideas. But yeah, I mean, Trotsky, maybe it'd be more about what Lenin's vision was instead of what Stalin hijacked it into being. But yeah, I mean, we'll be there. But I mean, ends up being might is right, and Stalin wins out and then gets him assassinated. So in the end, you got to have powerful allies, and Stalin had that. So anyway, all right, Nick, opinion on South Dakota, the best Dakota.
I've never been there, unfortunately, so I don't have a super strong one.
Go to Rushmore and Devil's Tower. That's all in the South part, right? Isn't all the stuff people think about? I think's in the South.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Let's see. Alan, U.S. force. Thank you, $20. Thank you so much. U.S. forces other countries to pick between U.S. and Cuba and threatens to cut off if they do business with Cuba. U.S. wouldn't give Bangladesh relief during famine till they cut ties with Cuba. Cuba offered comps exact money because reported on their taxes. Let's see. U.S. forces other countries to pick between U.S. and Cuba. Do you think that should be something too? Do you think the U.S. should require their allies to kind of view their enemies the same way, especially when it comes to economics, though?
I don't know. I don't know about the Bangladesh incident in particular off the top of my head. It's hard. I guess, does the United States have the right to say I'm only going to do business with people that don't do business with my enemies? Potentially.
I guess that's kind of the idea. So, like, should the U.S. try to pressure their allies to also not do business with like Cuba because Cuba still has outstanding debts to the United States? I guess.
I mean, that's kind of human nature. I think one thing that does get short-ended or upended by this is a lot of other countries wouldn't want to do business with Cuba anyways, or don't want to do business with Cuba. I mean, even China very recently has been pulling back the amount of money that they've been investing in Cuba. So other countries just typically don't want to invest in that because it's a failing government, and they also seized a lot of assets from a lot of other countries when they took it over. So, I mean, is it right for America to do it? I don't know. That's hard. I don't want to say no, it's not right, because I want to maintain like the ability to say, hey, if war happens, you have the right to refuse to do business with somebody that's going to do business with your enemy. I don't know that Cuba currently is doing anything egregious enough to justify that behavior by America at this moment, but I also don't have all the context either.
Sure.
For that specific event.
All right. Cool. All right. What is late stage capitalism? When did early stage capitalism end? Is there such thing as late stage socialism? Forgive me, I know nothing. Well, late stage socialism is supposed to be good. That's supposed to be you're on the verge of achieving that utopia, right? Late stage capitalism is usually feared. That's when it's on the brink of collapse due to what probably a too much of a disparity between rich and poor, a point where maybe you turn into an oligarchy in a way where the leaders of business have become so powerful that really they can overcome I don't know, democratic institutions, I guess, in that way. That again, there's just going to be so much of a disparity now of the poor class being so huge and so much wealth, into a very small few people that it's on the brink of collapse. And that's what Marx had kind of predicted that would happen. That eventually, what's going to happen is the workers are going to revolt and start a revolution that will then forcibly take that means of production. So that's the hypothesis about what late stage capitalism is and what Marx says is going to happen. So I don't know. Do you have any things about late stage capitalism?
I mean, I would say we're probably, if we're not in late stage capitalism, we're approaching it quickly. I mean, I had to watch a commercial while my gas was pumping the other day, and at the rate we're going, I'm probably going to have to watch a 30-second commercial to get toilet paper out of a public bathroom dispenser. So yeah, no, capitalism can definitely get out of hand. I have zero issues saying that because it's the truth.
Yeah.
I'm not aware of any late stage socialism ever existing because it never makes it past its infancy. And that's kind of just the problem. Capitalism indulges human nature, which human nature isn't that great. And socialism goes against human nature. So it just doesn't, it fails right out of the gate. Yeah, I don't know how it's going to shake out. Something will probably change eventually. But what you said with, oligarchs and super wealthy class and super poor people,
Yeah.
when you look at globally, that's already the case.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you've got people in mines in a different continent getting cobalt so I can have the new iPhone. Like, we're already there. It's just people think it's when it's affecting in my country. Yeah, I don't know how that'll work out.
Another hypothesis I've heard about late stage capitalism is it turning into feudalism again. And one thing people cite about that is like home ownership right now. Like, it's becoming less and less likely for people to own property, and now they're going to be renting more. And that eventually people are a very small few people are actually going to own property. And it's also going to become so expensive that we pretty much get landlords again, like lords in the classical sense again, that there's going to be just all the land owned owned by a few people, and may even get to the point where, well, in feudalism, you don't really pay people. You get your land and your home and your job. You're compensated with having a home and having a job and having protection, and the Lord kind of gives you everything you need. And that we're like transitioning to that landlords are now going to be the new thing, because it becomes so expensive that nobody can actually own land anymore. We're just going to be landlords are going to turn into the old lords of old. So
Yeah, but the scarier part is it's not really going to be a lord as in one individual. It's going to be a corporation, which
that's
is
true.
even scarier than an individual, because a corporation is never held accountable for its actions because it's under the opinion of 50 different people. You know what I mean? That's why banks and corporations get bailed out when the
Interesting.
economy fails, and it's never their fault. So you could
Rather
argue
have
that's even
the
scarier than
corporate
feudal.
lord. Rather have the corporate lord than the individual lord, whatever. Yeah, Lord Warren Buffett or something. I don't know. Anyway, fun to hypothesize about that stuff. So yeah, there's a couple different things that could happen. Some people say fascism is the rise of fascism is relates to capitalism and decline. That it, but the fascist understanding is blaming certain groups for that failure of capitalism rather than capitalism itself. So, yeah,
I mean, I don't know. Give me a group that's been blamed by fascists.
Jews,
Just thought experiment. Why'd they
communists,
blame them?
conspiracies. Yeah.
Conspiracies about what?
Control the economy or
Okay,
rise of
so
communism. Yeah,
conspiracy that they control the economy, so they're the ones with all the money.
and the media. Yep.
Okay, so then who do the communists want to kill when they take over?
The people the people that own the means of production.
The people with all the money. So
People with the money.
I mean,
Oh,
ideologically,
it's irrational.
it's literally it's the same thing as like who has all the money. It's just one side likes to divvy it up by an ethnic or religious group, and the other side just says if you got money, you're the enemy. So
Some people say they're one and the same. They're always like, I've read Mein Kampf, and it's the logic falls completely, because it was like in the same thing that, like, they were saying like the Jewish community is promoting communism, but at the same time they're also like the capitalists. They're like both. they're both boogeymen, in a way. And but that fascism was, I guess, a response to that, even for how irrational the I don't know, the premise actually was.
Like it was a response to communism.
That's well, like lumping together Jews. That's both the problem, or they are the capitalists as well as they are the Bolsheviks. Like they're both.
Okay.
I mean?
Yeah.
So that they blame both of them, and it's like, well, which way is it? You know what I mean?
Right.
Anyway, that's a different big subject, but that was what people were saying was when people say that fascism is what can happen when capitalism goes in decline. You start blaming these groups rather than the whole concept of capitalism itself and scapegoat.
I mean, it's definitely a fair thing to say that when things decline, you're going to blame somebody. But I would say that is probably true of any and all systems. Like when things start failing, it's human nature to look to assign blame to somebody that isn't yourself.
Yeah. Ever being accusing certain people or systems, and that maybe where is the difference that people will, I guess, argue.
I would say certain people or certain people that have arrived at a certain outcome.
Sure.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Actually, just keep coming through. You guys, I'm gonna go ahead and stop with the reading the super chats after you got this. Once I said we were about done, a bunch popped through. But I don't want to again leave on forever because they keep coming through. We've been 2 hours now, but I really thank you for it. So I'm going to take these. Yeah, don't worry. And yes, somebody in chat said Mr. Terry must have really wanted to do this because he's missing the Minnesota Vikings game, which is true. It's all right. I can check that out later. I'm a Vikings fan. They're on Monday.
Where are you from?
I'm in Utah, but I lived in Minnesota. So,
oh, you did? What part?
Too. Yeah, Maple Grove, Minnesota.
Okay, so like right outside of Twin Cities.
Outside of Minneapolis. Yeah, the Twin Cities. Yeah,
I've been there.
I was there as a kid, and it just kind of stuck. As I've lived all over the country. I've lived East Coast, West Coast, and now I'm in Utah. So I'm kind of a hybrid of all these different cultures. Even my friends have even said that like I'll pop out with a Minnesota accent, just out of nowhere sometime, even though I was like elementary school for me. All right. Anyway. Let's see. Going to Unsub Podcast. Hey, I'm open to an invite.
Yeah.
I told them anytime.
See what I can do.
You guys do that down in Texas, right?
Yeah, it's in San Antonio.
So far from that, but yep. I'm always down to collab with anybody. Okay. Also, we all ever collab with HLC on a video? Who is that?
Habitual Line Crosser. It's a
okay.
Yeah.
He does shorts.
He does longer ones now. Yeah, but he did shorts for a long time. Now he's kind of branching out. Yeah.
Okay, I'll have to look at it because in the YouTube analytics you can see what other channels people are watching.
Yeah,
that is one that's up there, but it's always been like the videos are watching are short, so it doesn't really fit what I do. But
yeah,
if he's doing longer stuff, I'll have to check it out and look into. Do you know him at all or know them?
No, yeah, he's a great guy. He's an active duty Army still, super knowledgeable on like anti-missile stuff.
Might be cool if I cover his stuff. I'll have to contact him. But
yeah, he's good.
Okay. Obviously, companies cheated on their taxes and undervalued. Well, I don't think anyone's disputing that.
Yeah, everybody.
I mean, there's a reason some people get rich. They know the loopholes, right?
Nobody cheats on their taxes. The government intentionally puts loopholes there that they take advantage of. I mean, it's just the way the game's played, unfortunately.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, thank you, Adon. Snowtail, Nick, have you ever visited the USS Yorktown in the Carolinas?
I have not.
That would be cool. I haven't seen any of the cool stuff like that. Patrick Morris, thank you, out of Australia. Oh, okay. Adam Smith is talking about, or Adam Smith talks about this. Commonwealth Dragon, thank you for the $10. Says early stage capitalism was during Adam Smith's timeline, but late stage is about the current timeline, and late stage is effectively communism.
You can make an argument for that. I mean, in theory, it does all go back to you'll own nothing. So,
yep,
there's a strong argument for that.
Sure. So again, and
it all goes back to horseshoe theory. No.
It can turn to again a proletariat, I guess, workers' revolution eventually, or some kind of brand of feudalism. I mean, maybe so. Otherwise, there's gonna have to be. That's if you leave, I guess, capitalistic structures without any type of moderation or any type of limitations. If we're saying, or does it all equalize out and you start getting more mixed economies? There's a lot of different outcomes. it seems like that can happen with that. So thanks, Nick. Your explanation has forced me to rethink my stance on socialism.
Boom, worth my time tonight.
I think there you go. You got your moral paycheck if
Worth
you were
my
looking
time
to
tonight.
if you were if you were looking to untank a tanky, I guess. So, all right. Last couple here. Okay, Mr. Terry, hey Nick, both love content. Have you ever thought about doing video on John Balsone? I don't know them.
John Basilone? Yeah, absolutely. I will for sure too.
Oh, I'm so bad at certain like specific, like the stories you cover are mostly all stories I have no idea. Like these individual stories, like my whole study has always been the bigger stuff, but like those individual people's hero stories, that's where I love going to, because you tell those, and that's, it fits the other pieces, the small pieces
like
of my historical puzzle.
Did you like the IR platoon one, the last one you did?
Yes.
I thought it was cool.
That was
how
fantastic.
that one, like, started close and zoomed out. You're like, oh wait, that was the Battle of the Bulge.
Yes.
Yeah.
I did see that. I was like, it sounds like the Battle of the Bulge. I was forgetting what time it was, and it's like, oh, and it helps with the, now I don't just have the big piece, I got the little pieces, and I love that. The point of the arrow of the Battle of the Bulge, like you were saying, like the tip of the point. So that made it like all like, oh, I get it now. I love that moment where it clicks.
Right.
I love that kind of like intrinsic value that comes with learning history and piecing it all together. So Robert, $10. Thank you. When you say socialism failed, what exactly do you mean? Mr. Cherry recently reacted to a video by Hakeem claiming that socialism didn't fail. Interesting.
I'm assuming when I said socialism failed, it was just somebody equating it to communism. I feel like everybody confuses the two.
Right.
I don't think there's 100% socialist society that I'm aware of, or that's even ever really been tried.
Where the workers are completely controlled.
And I also don't think there's 100% capitalist society. I think there's definitely socialistic aspects in America right now. So I guess if you consider like where we're at now, you know, we have a bunch of socialist policies and everybody's paying taxes. So if you consider that a success, I wouldn't say socialism's failed. I'd just say it's a working piece of what we got going right now.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. I kind of said this earlier, that a lot of the socialist platform has been adopted by a lot of countries. So it's like it's almost like socialism today is in like a never-ending state of compromise almost. A lot of states are dealing with that, like compromise of where do you draw the lines, and which parts of the platform are you going to adopt and which are you not going to. And a lot of countries are still dealing with that. A lot maybe have found that niche. Like people talk about the Scandinavian countries, how like, okay, they don't become like full socialists, but they have adopted a lot of the policies and found what they think, I think, is like the right balance of workers versus capital owners versus how much influence does a government have of finding that. I think the United States has not found that yet. I don't know if we have. We have not found, we haven't found equilibrium. I don't know whatever you want to call it, but it sounds like you know what I mean. But we're still very much in that process.
Right.
So, yep.
Completely agree.
All right, Bell Tower, $50. Thank you so much. Mr. That's very generous of you. I really appreciate that. Mr. Cherry, you mentioned AI/AR interviews with former presidents. Nick, what are your thoughts of doing the same with historical generals and famous officers, being famous for either successes or failures? Like having like an AI VR interview with Patton or something. Do you think that would be
cool? Here's my concern with that is you have to do it one of two ways. You either have to have basically pre-canned answers, which isn't going to feel authentic and nobody's actually going to like it. That's basically like a pre-canned 3D experience. Otherwise, you run into the issue of like you're rewriting history if you do anything other. Like if you input all what you deem the characteristics of General Grant, and then you let the AI like just answer questions, and then you're going to have people going out there in the world being like, no, General Grant stood for this and thought this and would have done this, but the AI made all that shit up based off of its guess. So, I mean, in a way, you'd be rewriting history, and I think that could be potentially kind of dangerous.
Do you think AI could do a better job than a historian?
You know what I mean? I don't think people in control of AI will ever allow that to happen on purpose.
Okay. Why do you think? Yeah. Why do you think that they don't want it?
Just because history is inherently political. You know what I mean? So like, it's the same thing with anything else. Like, could we load all the data between, you know, two presidential candidates into an AI and say, hey, which one's going to be the best outcome for the country, and just run with it? We probably could, and it very well might be a better solution, but the 49% of people that would have voted for the other guy are going to be super pissed off about it.
That's true.
So,
I mean, yeah, I mean, you have the same disagreements anyways, whether it's an AI or some historian anyways. I wonder if some point like historians become obsolete. I mean, there's a lot of things that we hypothesize probably become obsolete because of AI. And then like what you and I do with like history and like content creation, AI is going to be becoming a big part of that. I wonder if some point, you know, I could probably say, AI, make me a video on the whatever, you know what I mean? The Treaty of Versailles, and then all of a sudden, boom, it comes out, and then, you know, is that gonna like replace us? I don't think it can never do the anecdotes, you know, that you give or that anybody can give. It can't create anything authentic that
yeah,
way. But I wonder about the future of AI and like the space you and I are kind of in. Anyway,
yeah, one day, well,
let's
somebody.
see. I've been dabbling with the AI music. I'm having a ton of fun with that. Have you ever tried that?
Yeah, I've tried it a couple times. It's interesting for sure.
It was pretty impressive to me. Like how good of like a melody it can make and something
Yeah,
like catchy. And I was playing around. I did like an album release the other a couple weeks ago. I was just making theme songs, and I'm like, these are legitimately really good songs. And it made me think of all my musician friends and stuff that like my brothers are musicians, and like showed it them, and they had no idea really about AI music. They're like, what the heck? Like I spend so much time trying to think of a melody for like this song, and you just put that in, and 10 seconds later it came up with something better than I can rack my brain about. It was like depressing for them to think about that. And then AI art, the same thing. Man, there's such a mixed kind of reaction to that, and see how it goes.
I
All
love
right,
the arguing in the comment section.
what do we
I
got? I
love
was
it.
looking
I
at
don't know.
super
People
chat.
just arguing about communism and capitalism. It's great. It's good
Love
stuff.
it. Love it. It's the classroom, baby. That's what it's all about. That's what I'm saying. Okay. Did they actually stop bringing in bringing in stuff? Just want to point out the irony of people angry about capitalism and supporting communism while paying to use a super chat for their voice to rise above others in the chat. I think we're
Wah,
getting pretty
wah.
cynical there. Yeah, we're getting pretty cynical there. If anything, it'd be like, well, I don't know. It being you're receiving the value for the work you're put in. Is that what it's supposed to be about? But I don't know. Anyway, I've never liked the idea where it's like I think an unfair thing that a lot of socialists get. They'll get criticism of like, you sell this thing, but you're a capitalist. Like you can't do that. Like you live inside of a capitalist structure, so like you can't uh make money or something. You're a hypocrite, you know.
Well, the interesting part, like I get what you're saying. I'm not trying to
Yeah,
short that up, but like the interesting part is, well, you can be a communist in a capitalist society. You're allowed to do that. Nobody will stop you. If you try to be a capitalist in a communist society, they will kill you or throw you in prison. Um,
capitalist and a communist. A capitalist. You could be a communist in a capitalist. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. I was thinking of it
so like
backward. I was like, wait,
in
what? Okay,
America,
yeah.
we have Amish communities. They're
Sure.
functionally communist. Nobody's stopping you from doing it. You could go and do it. The problem is you want all the benefits of it being in an industrialized capitalist society. You know,
Yeah.
you want your iPhone, you want the internet, you want all the shit we have from being capitalists, but you also want to be it just doesn't work out. You can't have your cake and eat it too, I guess.
Mhm. Yeah. The biggest argument that people would want is more control over the profits of their workplace. Like that way, like more for the workers. So the you're working again, like yeah, for a corporation. It's like somebody that okay, let's say you're like a socialist and you make YouTube videos and then you sell T-shirts. People will be like, you can't do that. That's capitalism. And it's like, well, it depends on I guess the structure you're using. Okay, that company you're using, is that a company that does profit sharing or whatever with their workers? Is there a democratization of the workplace that's selling that product? So if you're doing that, you're supposed to be in line with with socialism, ability to unionize and do collective bargaining and that sort of thing. So that's where I guess, yeah, you can, like you're saying, be a communist or be a socialist inside of a capitalist structure. You'll never get to the stateless, right? Or, you're not going to be stateless, moneyless, and classless that way. But as far as, I guess, a democratization of the workplace or whatever, I guess that's possible, but
Yeah.
you'll
And I mean,
never achieve communism.
I've alluded to this previously. Like, I still think there's definitely socialist aspects in the economy, and to a degree, I like them. I'm not against them. We can argue about how much social programs that we need or don't need. I think that's a perfectly fair conversation. But when you start advocating for communism, you're advocating for like violent revolution, and I think that's where you kind of lose the plot, and that's probably not a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, Commonwealth design. I think you asked this earlier too. Sorry if we took too long to get to it, but yeah, late stage capitalism. We kind of talked about that, about the different what late stage capitalism could potentially turn into. It's interesting because we don't have a lot of historical context for it, of something to go like, do we have these historical examples of capitalism and then what it ends up turning to, because it's still largely a historically kind of a newer concept, because
Yeah, we don't know
we've
yet.
had so much, we don't have anything to go off of, you know what I mean? It's very hypothetical. So anyways, question for both of you: have you run into the book Techno Feudalism, and thoughts if you have? Glad to see you both streaming together. Thank you so much. COP, what is
That's a
that?
good time.
Where's that from?
Cop.
I don't know. Is that the Mask of Agamemnon? I think so. We got some
Had that
ancient
pull me
Greece
over
going.
one time.
Techno feudalism. I don't know. Is that meaning like
I've heard of it. I
Elon
haven't
Musk
read
is
it.
going to be our lord kind of thing?
Interesting concept.
If as yeah, I mean, potentially it used to be about land ownership. Now it's more about, who controls certain technologies can have the same kind of impact that an aristocrat can have. So yeah, I mean, they're all real things. I totally agree. Cupcake Jake, $30 TFE. Will we ever get a CV USS Enterprise video? I'm sure that the ship has
Yes.
holds every record of everything U.S. history for a ship. I'm still mad that the GOV scrapped the first one.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll get it.
Working on
It'll
it.
come for sure.
Thank you so much, Cupcake Jake. All right,
Yeah,
Adlon.
late stage.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
not different question somebody asked. So late stage capitalism is a theory like flying cars, or is there some type of fact/history based study?
That's what
We
we're
haven't
saying.
achieved it, and we probably won't know we've achieved it until after the fact.
Right.
Because I don't think, has there ever been a capitalist society that's been documented that's failed and we know how it went?
Not
Or well
really.
documented by modern standards? I don't think so. Like, we're pretty much, you're living the experiment right now. You're
Yeah.
in the beta.
Yeah. And even if
Figure out as we
it would
go.
be smaller scale, but nothing to the effect that we have right now with the insane amount of wealth and power. I don't think, even if there is some kind of historical precedent, I don't think it would even work to compare it with
Comparable,
what's
yeah.
going on. Nothing comparable.
Yeah.
Exactly. Nothing comparable. So we'll see. Meatloaf, thanks for the $10. What effect do you think urban sprawl had on late stage capitalism and large corporations running the United States? Did that kill the American dream? Urban sprawl? No, I mean, the American dream was to get outside of the urban areas. You understand, you didn't want to live in the urban areas when the especially when like the Industrial Revolution was going on. The dream was to live in the suburbs, but obviously we're getting further and further out. Urban sprawl is pretty crazy now. Fewer and fewer people are doing obviously agriculture for a living, and we're working in all kinds of different industries. But yeah, large corporations running the United States. Yeah, I mean, it happens. The lobbies are big, and there's no such thing as a poor politician that gets any kind of popularity. So anyway,
Oh God, I don't even know. We're getting to the stage of like where I haven't fully matured my thought process on how deep I go down the capitalist rabbit hole. But like, generally speaking, I think I draw the line at like, I don't really like the stock market and the outcomes that it brings. I don't
what
like
do you
when
mean?
I don't like when you take the owner away. Like, I hate the note. Every company I've ever seen, because I study companies a lot too in case studies, and it's
Okay.
like every single time a company goes public, the owner cashes out, gets to do whatever they want for the rest of their life, and the company goes to shit because nobody's taking responsibility for that company anymore. You know what I mean? It's not anybody's baby. So like, I did this big video on Arizona iced tea, and it's such an awesome company because the owner has barely raised the price in like
Right.
23 years. You know what I mean? And he's in the interview and they're like, well, why haven't you raised the price? And he's like, I don't know. I don't need to. I make a ton of money already. Like, what, you know what I mean? Opening it up to the stock market means that there's no king on the mountain that can just say enough is enough.
Yeah.
Whereas you open it up to this board of directors and it's just a bunch of people that they don't care about 5 years down the road. They care about next quarter and increasing fake numbers on the stock market sheets and making money. So I think that's where things kind of go to shit.
Market. Well, it seems like companies go public for like one of two reasons. One is, like you're saying, they want to get out and retire. They get out, sell their shares, privately owned, or they need outside funding. Like they need that. And you look at how big, I mean, companies, publicly traded companies are, and it's because they have such that influx of money. But yeah, I just recently, within the last year or so, actually started putting money in the stock market. So I never cared about it until now. Now I'm actually like looking at it. It's so crazy that I don't want to handle it myself, because like my brother-in-law, because I was like, yeah, I'm like paying someone to kind of handle it, you know, take a small percentage. It's like, no, you should do it yourself. Like that would drive me crazy. I do not want to look at my doing trading and like all the little parts of it. Like it would just ruin my brain with that because of how crazy it is. But yeah, I guess I don't know. Yeah.
Sorry. Is Fat Electrician complaining about people having the freedom to do business, which he acts like is a human right? Yes. Yes, I am. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be allowed to do it. I'm not saying we should abolish the stock market.
Yeah.
I'm saying that you have a human right to do that, just like you have a human right to say whatever you want, as long as you're not inciting violence. And I have the right to not really care for what you have to say. And I can voice that opinion as well. And that's what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
I love capitalism. There's a lot of shitty ways to go about it. And I think that's one of them. And I think that's perfectly reasonable.
Economies definitely grew with the invention, though. I don't want to call it an invention, of the idea of like a corporation, multiple people owning things. We've seen economic growth there when it's rather than just like single ownership, or maybe it stays within the family. Like it's broad in that because of the amount of influx coming in. But kind of your argument you're saying though is that it makes the product, it can make the product worse when that does happen.
Yeah, I mean, it just ruins everything. As soon as you take, you know what I mean? Like, imagine how shitty, and I mean, I realize Elon Musk is controversial, but like, imagine how shitty SpaceX would be tomorrow if it went public and they were more worried about making money than making it to outer space. SpaceX just caught a rocket booster. Do you understand how fucking crazy that is?
Was cool.
That's insane. And
that was
like,
cool.
you know, I understand it's a cycle, or a political cycle right now, and Elon is doing a bunch of stuff with the election. He's got a bunch of people pissed off, but like one of the coolest things that man has ever done has been in an interview, and they're like, "Did you patent how you've improved the rocket boosters so much?" And he looks at the camera like, "Patents are for the weak. If you can steal my ideas and do better, do better. We're trying to advance mankind." That's one of the most gangster things anybody's ever fucking done ever. Like, so I'm just saying, like, somebody made that big out of passion and love and wanting to go forward. And it just sucks when somebody like sells out or they pass away and they don't have a successor to pass that passion off to. And then it just becomes all about making money. And then it can actually work against itself, because you'll have companies that, you know, they make a ton of money by making this widget, and the new company comes out that'll make that widget obsolete. Instead of moving along with the times, they'll just buy out that company in its infancy and deprive the world of that new, more efficient widget. So capitalism can definitely go wrong. Oh, hey, it's just me. Terry, where'd you go? Terry. Hold on, I'll see if I can get Mr. Terry back. I'm so sorry. Welcome to my first official solo stream that I've ever done. Thank you for coming. Good. This is exactly what I was hoping for all along. Went from our stream to my stream. This is what capitalism is all about. I have now taken over Terry's stream. Mr. Terry says the techno lords have hacked me. I only had 3 super chats left. He says he's coming back. I'm going to try to not let him. Hold on. Let's see if I can fight him on this. I'm going to take over his stream on his YouTube. Oh, he's back.
Wait, I heard that. What were you going to do?
Nothing. I said,
what were you going to take over?
It went from our stream to my stream. This is what capitalism's all about.
I texted him, said that, yeah, the techno lords are hacking me here, aka Comcast, I guess. I swear I get throttled. I need Google Fiber. I don't. Do you have fiber internet?
I do. It's awesome.
Is it Google?
No, it's some new company. It's not Google. I don't know who it is though.
It's like
just got to my little town.
It's like available everywhere around my area, but not in my area. And anyways, I forgot what we were. Oh, you were saying about how, yeah, Elon doesn't patent stuff. So like,
yeah, I mean, just like it just sucks when a great company that's run by somebody with passion that wants to, they're on a mission outside of making money. But when the mission becomes making money, it's shitty, and it can actually be counterproductive to like the progression of society.
And that would a lot of people say that might be or someone might say that's a criticism of capitalism in a way. Sure. If it does, become all about money. Then people argue that if it is, the pursuit of money will coincide though with progression. And I don't, like you're saying, there's plenty of reasons to not think that's the case, because if that is it, it can do a bad product. So like, I don't know, even systemically, is there any way we can regulate that, I guess, in some way? But it's hard. It's just going to take people that want to go against the money-making motive. And let's not say that there's still not a lot of money involved with Elon. What is he, the richest person potentially right now when you look at, his potential wealth? And essentially what he does, because he'll sell his shares basically when he needs money. That's how he does things, not necessarily sitting on cash. It's like, okay, I got to go do this thing with Tesla or whatever. So I'm going to sell some shares and I'm going to use it to go, do whatever. And then there's a whole bunch of problems with that, because that also means things aren't going to be taxable when you start moving money around like that. But it goes back to the whole idea of like the United States and our economy. We're still working out those things, and don't know what the end result will be. Or if we do the late stage capital implosion that everyone in chat keeps insisting we're about to hit. All right. Anyway,
we'll find out.
Okay.
The rifles and LMT for the people that keep asking.
Someone thought you were in Paris.
Yeah, don't say it out loud.
I don't know if that was an inside joke or something.
Say it. I'll tell you later. Just don't read that out loud. Trust me. For the sake of your YouTube channel.
Okay. I've fallen to that before in certain times.
No. So. Yeah.
Okay. You're doing a lot better at that than me. The traps, like if someone wants to pay to do that, then so okay. Malik wants you to say something nice about communism. You have to do it. Do it. You have to do it.
I mean, it's a problem that tends to solve itself. So I mean,
is there any way communism could be a better system than something before it? Not saying it's the best outcome, but is there a scenario where it is a better system than something people might have been experiencing before?
Not that I can think of. I'm open to having my mind changed, but in my opinion, communism is like a parasitic organism. It takes over its host and then lives in its carcass for 80 years until it collapses within itself. So you're pretty much confined by whatever society you took over. I mean, that's why Cuba is still living in ruins from the 1960s. Like, if you can come up with a different example, I'd love to hear it, though. I'm open to having my mind changed on that.
Yeah, famous. The one I've been looking at with videos is that was better in Russia than it was for the majority of people in Tsarist Russia. So, all right. John thinks I'm too wholesome for unsub. mean,
We've had wholesome people on it. I can drag wholesome. You just got to get him drunk, okay? It's gonna be fun. Mr. Terry's gonna be lit when he's drunk. It's gonna be awesome. I'm gonna find out what his opinions really are. Okay, this is what we want to know.
I'm taking off my teacher ID badge and like,
That's right.
maybe
I'm gonna,
okay.
I'm gonna get him like the glasses with the fake nose, you know, the disguise. You won't know it's him, but we all really know. Okay, he's gonna be taking his shirt off like he's Bert Kreischer. It's gonna be awesome.
You know what? If I ever
stories.
If I ever quit teaching, that might be a perfect place for me to announce my resignation and then be able to be unfiltered, I guess, in a way. It'd be like a way to do that. Okay, I'm going to announce my retirement from public education, meaning I have no restraints. But then I will already tell you that it won't be as exciting as you think. All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, but you was also saying using the cake example again, why communism don't work. Were we talking about cakes?
It was a bit that I did on Unsub a while back. It was more of a comedy routine than like an actual like attempting to be intellectual example. Sorry. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Sorry, I want to get through. By the way, anyone know the score of the Minnesota game?
Are the Vikings losing?
Are they? Oh god. Okay, they're down 4 to the Rams. Okay. All right, we're gonna come back.
Ha. Hey, I'm a Rams fan.
Are you? Wait, what are you? Who are you? Rams fan?
Rams.
Are you really? How'd you get into
right.
Rams? From the St. Louis days or what?
Family's from California originally.
Okay. You are a Rams fan. I mean,
LA, old school
I know
LA
this
Rams.
year has been disappointing because of the injuries and stuff. So, well, I'm surprised. I thought Minnesota literally would be the worst team in the league. I thought that was a possibility, and I was actually down with it. I'm like, let's just tank and like go get a good draft pick. But then all of a sudden, Sam Darnold like figured out how to play football, and now they're like killing it. And now we're gonna go for it. So. Did y'all meet? Did y'all know each other before? No, I saw his. I was heavily recommended. I had a bunch of people at the same time saying, "Hey, you got to cover this guy. You got to cover this guy." And then he was nice enough to reach out to me and just, said appreciate you covering it, and that's just how we connected. So,
yeah, buddy.
Yep. All right. Topical: the oligarchy of American ISPs. Oh yes,
we were talking about internet speeds. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean. I don't know, maybe there is another fiber company out here. I don't think there are. I think it's going to be Google out here. And everyone I know that has the Google fiber says it's great. So I just want that in general. I'm sick of, Comcast is awful. Yeah, it's really bad for content creation too, because they do not have anything good for upload speeds. And I hate it. I hate it. I mean, how long does it take you to upload one of your hour videos?
30 minutes, 20 minutes.
See, that's awesome. See, mine's double that probably.
Yeah.
So, and that's money. All right, are we finally getting to the end? You guys keep being awesome. $5. I want to become an aerospace engineer. I'm currently getting my degree, and SpaceX inspired me at the age of 12. Learned so much. That's badass.
That's awesome.
Heck yeah, dude. Aerospace. Get us to Mars, dude. Get us to Mars.
Because we can, for no other reason. That's why.
Yeah. Balder says, I think communism is an optimistic idea that failed the test of the 20th century.
Completely agree.
Yeah. I mean, everyone argues that, hunter-gatherer era was basically that. So on certain scales and in certain
hunter-gatherer era fucking sucked. That's why we quit doing it.
There's an argument that people say we were happier then because you actually didn't do that much hunting. You hunted, then you were kind of set off pretty well, and then after that you hanging out with your boys and your John Green said you'd spend more time scootily pooping with
the strong maybe had a better time. It's basically just Maslow's hierarchy of needs, really.
It's science.
If you're still on the food, water, and shelter steps of that hierarchy and you don't acknowledge self-actualization, you're happier because you can't really be depressed. I guess that makes sense.
All right, okay, this is the final one. Here we go. The one nice thing about communism is it gave us the AK.
That's fair.
Can you say that? Can you put that down as your
I mean, if we want to get technical, the AK is just a knockoff of the M1 Garand, but I guess.
By the way, did you get to play around with Brandon's Cybertruck with the machine gun?
I've driven his Cybertruck. I haven't done anything with the machine gun on it.
You see that the thing he built
Yeah,
on
yeah.
top?
Yeah, he's got it
I
wrapped like a
reviewed
Warthog.
that video. I'm like, that looks actually pretty badass.
Yeah.
And the cool outfitting where they put the guns inside of it. I'm like, that's what is that range or whatever you guys are always at, like with
It's
shooting and
Demolition
stuff?
Ranch.
That's Demolition
Well,
Ranch.
it's Desperado Resort, but it's Demolition Matt Carricker's place.
That's thing. Yeah.
Range that
That's
he
just
has, yeah.
private. You guys can do whatever you want down there. Essentially. That's awesome. All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up. Oh, wait. Why is Imperium of Man superior to the greater good of the Tau?
I feel like that's a 40K reference.
Oh, geez. Oh, is it? Okay. All right. I'm going to let you go. We never said how long you're on, but you came on for 2.5 hours, and we started, talking about the ideas. I think, you were refuting all those ideas that I got out of the Hakeem video about the Ribbentrop Pact, and it seems like forever since we were talking about that now. But are you're still not buying that the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact was the Russians knew what they were doing. They were gonna go into Poland. This wasn't a response to the Germans. It was that was your overall summary.
Yeah, no, they knew what they're doing. The notion that I haven't seen his video, so I don't know. I don't want to straw man him, but generally speaking, when I've had conversations with these people, the overarching concept is the Soviet Union was very specifically reactionary and doing it out of self-preservation and defense. My counter argument to that would be, A, the reason that you weren't equipped to defend yourself in the first place was because of your own communist policies with the Great Purge. That's up front. B, it makes it very, very hard to claim self-defense while you're also profiting monetarily on it. Before and after you signed the Ribbentrop-Molotov Pact, you had commercial deals. So it makes it very hard to claim self-defense when you're also making money off of it. And C, just the entire notion of I'm claiming self-defense while also attacking somebody else to take their property. It doesn't fly.
Okay. You're not buying it. You're not buying it. All right. Hey, last thing before we end, just for everybody, I am going to do something I've never really done before. I'm going to do an election night stream coming up here. I'm going to be streaming over election night, and I've got a couple guests that are going to come by, at least that have confirmed. Mr. Beats coming, Vlogging Through History's coming. And I kind of tested this out with the last vice presidential debate. It actually went, I was testing chat to see if they could act mature in a political setting, and they did a good job. Huh? It actually went incredibly well. I couldn't believe it.
He said that out loud on the internet.
Yes, it went well. Again. I thought it would be a dumpster fire. I'm like, I want to use this as a test. Can I actually cover a modern political thing with the candidates? It was the Walls and JD Vance, their debate, and it went really well. People were like, this was great. I like to do these live events like this, but it's usually a dumpster fire, and everybody was pretty cool. So I'm going to try an election night thing where we'll see the results coming in, and we'll see what's going on, but look out for that, you guys. Hopefully you can come hang out and it won't be too much of a dumpster fire, but it'll probably be maybe a little bit of a dumpster fire, but we'll see how it goes, but we'll see we'll see. All right. Well, thanks again, Nick. Let's do it again. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Good. Everyone have a good night. Peace.
See you later.